All right. Welcome back. Gonna get started on the afternoon session of the Darrell Brooks trial from Waukesha, Wisconsin. Um, he's been awfully annoyed this morning. I think he's getting desperate. He sees the writing on the wall. Uh, I'm guessing the prosecution's welcome back, Static. I think the prosecution's getting pretty close to resting their case. We finished with his flight from his car. I have a feeling we're going to have testimony from the officers who arrested him, the DNA tech, maybe someone else about the dancing grannies to rehab the one witness, and then I think the prosecution's done. Um, of course, they're going to have their field trip to the scene of the crime and then see the car. Um, Hello, Empty Woods. Good to see you today. Um, and with that, I took a little longer lunch, so we're still a little behind. I'm sure we'll catch up during the afternoon potty break. So with that, I'm gonna fast forward and we'll get started. Oh, a little too far. All right. It should be okay. There's Bailiff Howard Hamlin and the top of Brooks's very ugly head. Well, I shouldn't say ugly. I should say I'm not a fan. And the bailiff behind him has looked so disinterested throughout the trial. I think he's done with it. He and I don't blame him. He deals with this all day every day. Not necessarily trial, but court. I'm sure one defendant blends in with the next for him, and it just gets old. And judging by the size of the book Brooks is reading, I'm assuming it's his Bible again. Still toward the end of it, like this morning, so I'm guessing he's in the book of Revelations. I still think it's performative reading, but it really doesn't matter one way or the other. Of course, the jury's not out yet, so it's performative for nothing. He'd be better off if he were to crack open that evidence book in front of him and actually read about the rules of evidence because he knows three, maybe four objections, and he's getting desperate, uh, as we saw with the voicemail from the last witness in trying to keep that out, even though he's the one that brought it into evidence. The prosecution had no plans. Um, but he was desperate to keep the prosecution from redirect about that voicemail message from his mom. But he just strung objections, uh, one after the other. It was objection, relevancy, denied. Objection, hearsay, denied. Objection, what what's his other objection? He It might have been asked and answered, or X'd and answered, but there's another one he does. I mean, he's got priorities, so that's it, static leading. He doesn't know what any of them are. I mean, and the judge has admonished him, read what hearsay is, but he clearly hasn't. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit more because I really don't care to watch him reading his Bible. Still no sound, but he's thumbing through evidence. Well, thumbing through police reports, I assume. So,
Thank you, everyone. Be seated.
and before Steve reminds me I'm a bad YouTuber, hit like and subscribe on your way in. What's his argument going to be as the jury's on its way out this afternoon? I assume subject matter jurisdiction, but I imagine he'll have other things to complain about at the same time.
All right, we are back on the record in State versus Brooks. Appearances are as they were before. I know this morning I mentioned I would mention to the jury about Exhibit 15. As I recall going back in my memory about how that exhibit was received, I believe I already told the jury it is received or was received subject to further testimony. So I don't know that I need to tell them again that it's received, and it would be my inclination to just simply let it be.
And
We've
then
noted
send it back as
outside the presence of the
exhibit.
jury, but that's how I intend to handle that.
Agreed. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, I believe all of our jurors.
That could be it.
Well, they're all back, of course, but they're ready to go. And so when we bring them out, the state should be prepared to call the next witness. Okay, very good. Then bring the jury out, please.
You ain't called that name that you started with. I don't know if the audio's on.
Who cares if you consent or not? She's going
I
to
was,
call you that name.
When I called the case, I actually didn't specifically refer to you, but I did say State versus Brooks. But in any event, your objection is noted for the record, and we'll continue with testimony.
Will you be addressing subject matter jurisdiction?
She already has. She has jurisdiction. She's not even going to entertain it with a response.
Is that a judicial determination
Is it
not
a
to answer your
TACAD agreement? It's a TACAD agreement.
So is that a TACAD agreement?
Oh, yep. I told you, TACAD agreement. He's got those puppy dog eyes looking at her like he really expects an answer this time.
All rise.
Subject matter jurisdiction has yet to be proven for the record.
And the jury will disregard it. But yeah, I'm guessing
Thank you,
police
everyone. Please
officers
be
as the
seated.
next
State
witness.
have the next witness, please.
Thank you. The state calls Officer Rebecca Carpenter.
Good afternoon, officer. If you would please make your way to the witness stand on my right up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand. My clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Thank you. Please be seated. The first thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Rebecca, Rebecca, Carpenter, Carpenter.
Thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
It's
Thank you.
possible there was
Officer,
a
how are you employed?
loading
On the day of the parade, I was working a shift for the Village
signal.
of Big Bend Police Department, sir.
Is that who still employs you?
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yes, I'm also a patrol officer for the town of East Troy, and I'm the assistant chief for the Village of Eagle.
How many years have you spent in law enforcement?
I was appointed to the Milwaukee Police Department in March of 1991.
And when did you
So
come out here to
31
the
years.
Waukesha County jurisdictions that you mentioned?
I retired from the Milwaukee Police Department as a sergeant in November of 2017, and the first department I got into policing again with was the town of East Troy in May of 2018.
You already made reference to the parade. Were you working on duty as a law enforcement officer on November 21st of 2021?
Yes, sir, I was.
Lady.
Overruled,
Probably
and
contempt.
you may answer.
Yes, I was.
Were you aware that day that the Waukesha Christmas parade was taking place?
Actually, I was not.
Did you at some point become aware that there was a parade in downtown Waukesha?
Objection, lady.
Overruled. You may
Yes.
answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, I did.
How did you go about learning that information?
I heard over the radio channel that Big Ben monitors, which is not the same radio channel that the parade was on. I heard a broadcast that there had been shots fired.
What did you do in response to hearing that broadcast?
In response to that particular broadcast, I started paying closer attention.
And then what happened?
Squads on my channel, which is a Waukesha County channel, started to say that they were placing injured people in the backs of their squads and driving them to the hospital, which is a highly unusual circumstance.
Oh yeah,
What did you do when you learned that
because you want to
information?
transport them in an ambulance. If you're resorting
I
to squad
started
cars,
I started
it's a
driving
lot of
toward
casualties.
downtown Waukesha.
Did you get there?
I did.
What happened then?
Initially, I went to the parade route and I talked to a few people around injured people and determined that I wasn't really able to be of help there because they were all back injuries and I can't, in a squad, I can't help with
You
that.
need a backboard.
So what did you do next?
I answered a call on the radio that said there was a man going door to door on Elizabeth Street asking to use people's phones to call an Uber.
I think
Did you
that's
go to look for that man?
preferable.
I did.
Where did you go?
I responded to Elizabeth Street and I parked my squad on Elizabeth and West.
But did she have
did you go from
jurisdiction?
there?
Because she's not a
I got
Waukesha
out
police
and partnered up
officer.
with two other officers. And we decided that we would walk the street and look for this person.
Were you wearing a body
You're
worn
right,
camera
Steve.
at the
Is
time?
he even
Yes,
a
sir, I
real
was.
sovereign citizen?
Where was that device affixed?
If he
to the
hasn't
person?
addressed the flag fringe.
The control box was on my chest, and the particular model of body-worn camera that I was wearing had a a lens that I was wearing affixed to my collar.
Your Honor, let the record reflect that the witness has held up her right hand in a circle and pointed it towards about her collarbone, her right collarbone.
The record will so reflect.
Was that device also equipped with a microphone?
Objection
Yes.
leading.
Overruled.
Yes, sir.
And that microphone was synced up with the video?
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether your device was activated as you were walking down Elizabeth Street that afternoon?
It was.
Overruled, and her answer may stand.
Once
May we
again,
please display for the witness
he
only.
was
exhibit
already
number
answering
80.
when he objected.
Go ahead. It will come on the monitor in front of you.
Do you see a video on the screen in front of you?
Yes, I do.
We're going to play the first 5 or 10 seconds of that just to see if you recognize it, okay? All right, we played 6 seconds. Do you recognize that video?
I do.
What is it?
It is my body camera video of walking down Elizabeth Street.
From November 21st?
Objection leading.
I will overrule it, and the answer may stand.
Does this video and the associated audio accurately reflect what happened that night as you saw it?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, sir.
I'd move Exhibit 80 into evidence and ask to publish.
Apparently,
Objection.
leading is the objection of the day.
Overruled. Exhibit 80 is received permission to publish as granted. For the record, please tell me the total length.
It is a 5-minute video.
Ooh.
Thank you. Go ahead.
We will start at the beginning. We're going to play it with audio, and we will pause at certain points, and I'll point out the timestamps when we pause. So we'll start from the beginning, please.
All right, and the video is on screen. You can hear it's very windy still. And my computer says it's 69 degrees here. Just thought I needed to point that out so I could say nice.
Hands up! Put your hands where I can see them!
Oh, hey,
Put your hands up! Hands up!
that's what we heard on the ring camera. Hands up.
Get on the ground! Do it now! Hey,
Taking one of the hospitals for a plan here.
what did I do?
What did I do? What did I do?
We've paused at 53 seconds. A few moments earlier in the video, we saw what appeared to be a handgun. Does that sound right to you?
Yes, sir.
Who was the person
First.
holding that handgun?
That was me.
And who were, well, let's see, let me strike that. I want to direct your attention to the top right corner of the screen here. There appears to be some type of timestamp. Do you see that?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
I do. Yes.
Do you know if that is an accurate
It says
military time
11:37.
timestamp?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
That does not accurately reflect the time, but it occurred, no.
So it was not 11:11 p.m. at the time this video was recording.
Objection leading.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
Do you know approximately what time it was that this video was recorded?
I know that I initially began to respond to the scene at about 20 minutes to 5. And I would be guessing about how much time elapsed, but I would say it wasn't more than a half hour or 40 minutes to this point.
At this point, it's closer to
The
5:30.
person who was depicted in the video at this point at 53 seconds, that's what, describe where in the video you first saw that person.
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
I first saw him standing on the porch.
And what, if anything, did you see that person doing when you first saw him?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Everything's leading.
He appeared to be rather agitated.
And
Why do you say
hearsay.
that?
Objection leading.
Overruled. It's not leading. You may answer.
He was moving back and forth on the porch and gesturing.
I mean, that's so far from leading that it's
Do
laughable.
you recall what you were wearing that evening?
I do.
What?
Objection assumes facts and evidence. Who
The
says
exact
she was
same set of
wearing
clothing
anything
that I'm
at
wearing
all?
today.
Including long sleeves?
Yes.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Did this person, depicted at 53 seconds, draw your attention in any way based on what he was wearing?
Yes.
Why?
It was chilly out, lower 40s, upper 30s, and he
Late
was
November in Wisconsin.
in a t-shirt, jogging pants, and no shoes.
Hang on, other
We
people
can
said
resume
blue
playing
jeans.
here at 53 seconds, please.
You got something with your name on it, man? No. Okay, lads. Cooperate with us. Okay. Okay.
We paused at 1 minute and 4 seconds. What did we see in that portion of the video?
That was a sandwich.
Where did that sandwich come from?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
His right pants pocket.
The subject on the ground is.
Yes, sir.
I often have a pocket
Please
sandwich.
resume at 104.
Robert 277. What's your
We paused at 1 minute and 14 seconds. Did you at some point ask the subject depicted in the video at 114 to identify himself by name?
Go ahead.
I did.
What was that person's response?
He identified himself as Darrell Brooks.
Oh,
Do you see Mr. Brooks in the courtroom today?
I do.
he's got his brow
Can you point him out
furrowed at
for
that
us?
one.
By telling us where he's sitting and what he's wearing.
He is seated at the defense table wearing a dark
I
colored
object
suit and
to you
striped
calling
tie.
it the defense
and a
table.
mask over
It's
his
the
face.
alleged
Just to be
defense
thorough, Your Honor,
table.
could we please have Mr. Brooks remove his mask momentarily?
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. Go ahead.
Now that Mr. Brooks has removed his mask, does that change anything about your testimony today?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. It's
You're,
leading.
Why not both,
you
Steve?
may go ahead and answer.
Why not both?
That's Darrell Brooks.
Could we please play from 114?
There's multiple units. David 216 goes to 10.
What is your name?
Brooks.
Oh, he said Darrell Brooks, not
Pause
Darrell
at 1
Brooks.
minute and 23 seconds.
Gotta have the right inflection on the name
Sitting
there.
on the witness stand today, do you acknowledge that Mr. Brooks has a short haircut?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. It's leading.
Sustained as to the form of the question, please.
How would you describe Mr. Brooks's haircut today?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Who cares?
Sir, I understand your objection. Please do not interrupt with that further so that the questioning of the witnesses may continue. You may answer.
If you say that name, I'm objecting.
And she can remove you or gag
The
you.
jury will
Or,
disregard the objection if it's solely for the name purposes. Go ahead.
Mr. Brooks
She's
has
over
his
his
haircut close
garbage.
today.
What about when he took his face mask down? Did you notice his facial hair?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
He does have facial hair.
Did you notice anything different about his facial hair today versus in the video?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
That is also trimmed closer.
Does the hairstyle and the facial hairstyle here in court today give you any pause or concern over whether or not it's Mr. Brooks in the video?
Objection.
Go ahead and answer, please.
No, not at all.
Let's resume playing at 123.
Objection noted for the record.
yes, and she said she denied it.
I just used somebody's phone to call for a minute. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I'll tell you what. If everything turns out to be on the up and up, life will be good and you'll be on your way, all right?
I got it. Suspect, I presume?
Unknown. Ask him.
I mean, the
Ask
thing
him if he
is,
knows. He was on the porch
like,
here.
Yeah, I was using.
I could definitely see completely random people going door to door asking for a phone because they're scared out of their minds trying to escape. So it's not necessarily inherently suspicious, or it doesn't necessarily mean he's the suspect, but they still have to investigate.
What's your name, guy? 9209. I just told her my name.
What did you tell Park?
Yes, sir. What's your first name?
And at this point, remember,
Yes, sir.
an officer has already done an exigent search of
That's just a
the,
description of the guy that got
escape.
called on who was going door to door over here.
and they have
Yeah, I was trying.
Where your
basic
shoes, man?
I was trying to use
descriptions.
somebody's phone.
Where are your shoes?
My flip flops is in his house.
They're oh no, they're
Paused
not.
at 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Did you hear the last thing said by the suspect on the ground at this point?
Objection
Yes.
leading.
Overruled.
What did he say?
Objection leading.
It's
Overruled. You may answer.
He said, my flip-flops is in his house.
Do you know if any flip-flops or any other
grammar and
shoes of any
all.
kind were ever retrieved from the residence that this was taking place in front of?
Objection speculative.
Overruled. You may answer.
I did go in the house and speak to the resident there and asked if he had left shoes or outer garments or anything like that. And he said that he had not.
Can we please resume at the 2:49 mark?
I was a holdout getting a phone, but even I have one on me all the time now.
No shoes. Yeah, I did go to the house. I went to that house right there, right down the street, right here.
Where you coming from, man?
I was coming from that parade down here.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
he
know a
was
friend
coming
down
from
there.
the parade.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
That's an accurate statement.
I can't.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Roll over on your butt.
Okay, not you.
Roll over on your butt. Roll up on your knees. Roll over on.
Standard sovereign citizen.
Roll
Gotta
up on
complain
your-
about all the injuries as soon as you're being arrested.
Stand up.
553, 55 kilos.
What are you doing?
Freaking
sweet.
here.
Did I do something? That is yet to be determined, sir.
my squad, man.
Okay.
Is there anything I need to stick me poke me hurt?
No, not at all, sir.
Okay.
What about
Not
the
at all.
sandwich?
I don't
Will
have
that
any
stick him?
veggies.
I mean,
Right
if,
there.
if it's got
Nothing like
jelly on it, it could be
Why did you
sticky.
get up over here, man?
I was coming to see a friend.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where's your friend?
I don't know now.
Who's your friend?
Spin your back your hand for me. I had, yeah, you injured at all, dude? Yeah.
Sovereign
What hurt?
citizens always have injuries when they're getting arrested.
My knee, I already have an injury. Okay, yes. That's
Just like the paper
It
cut would have
certainly
kept him
yes.
from trial.
I'm so cold.
Oh, so cold. You shouldn't have
Paused
ditched
at
your
4
hoodie.
minutes and 30 seconds. Officer, can you tell us what you and any other officers were doing in that brief portion of the video?
Walking him to a squad car so he could be placed inside since he was not dressed for the weather.
What happened once you got to the squad car?
The officer whose squad he was going to be placed in went through his pockets to make sure he did not have anything that would be dangerous.
Okay. And do you know if anything was retrieved from his pockets?
Yes.
Objection.
Grounds.
Her answer may stand.
There were no weapons, were there?
Objection
weapons.
leading.
Overruled. Her answer may stand.
What, if anything, do you recall being recovered from his pocket?
ID, some cards. I believe there was a credit card in there and a car key.
Can we please play from the 4:30 mark?
Go ahead and take a seat for me, Darrell.
Have a lot of in front of you. Do you want him to bring it out?
So what hurt?
We're having some skipping issues, so let's pause it there and go back to 450, please.
I'm sorry, what time?
450.
Go ahead.
Okay, we're at 448. We'll play from here.
Objection. You said 450.
I don't need to see those last few seconds. We can get them to work, I'm sure, if Mr. Brooks would like to see them.
Objection.
Could we please show for the witness only exhibit number 176? Do you recognize the photograph on the screen in front of you?
And clearly in the
I do.
last second
depict-
of the video that it skipped,
It is
the
still
officer said,
taken from
don't
my body
worry,
cam
we
footage.
have the real killer
Those are my
in the other
hands.
police car.
And in my hands are the property that was taken from Mr. Brooks. You can see the officer's back at the open door of the squad and Mr. Brooks' leg in the light there where he's sitting in the squad.
Your Honor, I would move exhibit 176 into evidence and request permission to publish.
Objection, relevancy.
Exhibit 176 has received permission to publish as granted. The objection is overruled.
And while we're waiting for the screens to activate for the jurors, I'll ask you, Officer Carpenter, do you know what happened to the objects that are in your hands in that exhibit?
Yes, I gave them to the officer whose car Mr. Brooks was sitting in.
You don't know the identity of that officer?
I don't. There were a lot of officers from a lot of different jurisdictions.
Objection, jurisdiction.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all I have.
That's all you have? All right, thank you. Cross, please.
Yes.
I guarantee he's going to ask her about her not being a Waukesha
At one point, you stated
officer.
the suspect was wearing jogging pants. That'd be fair to say?
Yes, sir.
Were the jogging pants or blue jeans?
They were soft pants. They were not blue jeans.
Can we show Exhibit 80 again?
Clearly,
Yes, we can.
if she
Yes, we can.
misidentified the type of pants, the jury's got to acquit.
Can you fast forward it a little bit?
I mean,
I'm
they
not
were
gonna be sure
probably
exactly where
jeggings, but
to pause it at. You fast forward just a little bit.
they're no longer called billy clubs, Steve. They're called piggy sticks.
Can you pause?
Oh,
Can you zoom
clearly
in
they're
a little
blue
bit?
jeans there. I mean, he's hung up
And
on the type of
wait a
pants.
few more seconds.
What
Would that miss the zoom up? Would
when
it still
it's
be
so irrelevant.
zoomed in, or would it go back out?
It'll stay zoomed on that portion of the screen.
Okay.
It's so irrelevant. Why get hyper focused on such a small detail?
Pause.
We're at 5 seconds.
55, yeah. You would describe those pants as jogging pants or soft pants, as you say?
Who cares? Do they fit with the sandwich in the pocket, though? Because we all want to know about the pocket sandwich. I think that's the most important detail.
And you stated that when you parked your car, where you parked your squad on Elizabeth and West, you hooked up with 2 other officers.
Yes,
So, would you say you were a thruple?
And those officers had long guns.
yes.
Can you explain what a long gun is?
A rifle?
Shoulder weapon, rifle, or shotgun.
As in not a handgun.
Do you recall if it was a rifle or a shotgun?
I did not examine either weapon closely.
She had her handgun out.
Are you done with this exhibit, sir?
Yeah, for right now, yeah.
For right now.
And you made reference to finding sandwich, credit cards, things of that nature in the pants, correct?
I found the sandwich.
What kind of
When we were laying on the
sandwich?
ground.
What kind?
And you also stated that you found a credit card and things of that nature. In fact, would it be fair to say that that's what was in your hand on Exhibit 176?
Do
It was in her hand. That doesn't mean she
you need
found
the
it.
exhibit to answer? Do you recall?
There were, I don't, thank you. There were what appeared to be credit cards and ID and a car key.
And they were in your hand, correct?
They were.
But that doesn't mean she found it, as he's trying to claim. They could have been handed to her.
So would it be fair to say you also found those and not just a sandwich?
Not if they were handed
I
to
did
her.
not pull that stuff out of your pocket, sir. That was a different officer. I did hold it while he finished searching you, sir.
So
That's not confusing.
I'm sorry.
If you have more than 2 brain cells, that's not confusing.
So you obtained that the credit cards and all that from a different officer.
Yes,
Did you find anything else?
on your person, I was not the person searching you. Aside from the sandwich while you were on the ground.
So as far as your search, you just found a sandwich.
Correct.
And at the time, do you recall why the suspect was being detained?
Yes,
And what
Was
what
the
reason?
sandwich saved for evidence?
because you matched a description that was broadcast over the police radio of a suspect involved in the parade incident.
Don't say incident, say parade massacre.
In this report, did you write it yourself or did another officer?
I wrote it.
Because she's an officer,
Do you recall
not a
writing that
civilian.
the suspect was being detained for investigative purposes?
Yes.
Which you were.
Any reason why you wouldn't state what those purposes were in the report?
Investigative purposes.
Yes. Because at the time we had contact with you, I was not fully aware of the circumstances.
Well, would it be fair to
No.
say that you just stated why the suspect was being detained?
Investigative purposes.
Did I just stated why this? I'm sorry, what was the question exactly, sir?
Would it be fair to say that you just stated when asked why was the suspect being detained at that moment? You
At
answered,
that moment.
yeah,
Yes.
at that moment that you detained the suspect. You stated because they matched the description.
She didn't have to
someone
have all
involved
the
in
details.
rape.
She heard over
Yes,
the
sir. That's
radio
correct.
a description of the
But then
suspect.
you just stated that at the time you weren't fully aware.
She didn't have to have all the
I
details.
knew
She knew
that people had been
She
hurt.
knew the description of a suspect.
I knew
She saw
that shots had
someone
been
matching
fired.
that description.
I did not know how many people were hurt. I did not know by what mechanism people would be hurt. I did not know the magnitude of the injuries. I just knew that something violent had happened.
So it'd be fair to say you weren't in the known of a lot of information at that point.
That doesn't matter.
That's true.
She knew.
Overruled.
She knew the description of the suspect they were searching for. That's all she needed at the time.
Would it be fair to say that you were being heard in Exhibit 80, stating that if everything was on the up and up, you would be on your way?
Yes, sir, that's correct. That was me.
So would it be fair to say that was an inaccurate statement if the suspect fit the description of?
Well, clearly everything wasn't on the up and up.
Not at all.
I want a high capacity sandwich.
And what do you mean by not at all?
I mean, sometimes people look like someone who did something and turn out not to be that person.
And once
that
again,
was not
this
the
talk
case
of
here.
sandwiches can bring us into
So as
a
far as
law
you knew
talk
at
with
the
Mike
time-
meme. Because last week there was in the
It could have been mistaken identity.
hearing from the
It could have been, but it was
prison
not.
guard
Well, at the time, it'd be fair to say at the time
giving
you didn't know.
sandwiches for
At the
sexual
time, I did not know.
favors. Between that and a thruple, there's a lot of bad jokes on Mike's channel right now.
Did you give the
And I
suspect
feel this
any of that
testimony is
information?
bringing us into all of them.
Objection.
Grounds.
All we need now is
Sustain the
pre-trial.
form of the question. It's vague.
Did you give the suspect any information on why they were being detained?
I said, actually, it wasn't me that said that. It was another officer that said that.
Why would you
and I
ruin
can't
a
tell you
good
who it was
sandwich with
because I
kale?
don't know. While you were being put in the car, you were informed you were being detained for investigative purposes, which is
What they did.
an answer that's appropriate for the circumstances.
So it would be fair to say that that's not really all that informative.
Exactly.
I did not have a lot of
everyone
information to
stay
give
out
you,
of Fulton
sir.
County.
Keep saying you. Who are you referring to?
Because those prosecutors are
Brooks.
inept and they'll let you sit for a
Darrell
year
Brooks,
without
seated at the
an
defense table.
indictment. That makes me so angry.
Any reason why you wouldn't tell a suspect why they're being detained?
She said you were detained for investigative
Essentially
purposes.
being that if you take someone into custody, they should know why they're being
That's
taken into custody.
argumentative.
Do you agree?
That's argumentative.
I can't give you information that I don't have. And I wouldn't want to tell you the wrong thing. That wouldn't be fair.
So why would a suspect be detained without any information to your knowledge?
Objection.
Grounds.
Asked and answered.
And it's
Also
argumentative.
calls for speculation, vague,
It's
sustained as to the form of the question.
she told you you were detained for investigative purposes. They don't have to fill you in on everything they're investigating right at that moment. In fact, it would be
So would it be fair to
inappropriate.
say that you can detain a suspect without them knowing why they're being detained?
Yes. Yes, she can.
Objection. This
Grounds.
is for legal
If
analysis.
there's
Not factual.
probable cause
No.
to
Sustained
detain,
as to the
they
form
can
of the
detain.
question.
They don't have to say a word to you. At least not initially. When you're in the back of the cop car, they do not have to tell you why. They can say, you are under arrest. Done.
Would it be fair to say you initially
You have to be
responded
told why you're under arrest eventually, but you don't have to
to
be
the 500
heat
block
of the
of
moment.
Elizabeth because of a report of, I guess you would call it a trespassing report?
It wasn't trespassing. It was a
I would
person going door
More-
to door.
put it under the heading of suspicious behavior under the circumstances.
So is that why you were initially dispatched to that area for suspicious
Yes.
behavior?
Yes.
Yes.
And do you recall when you got the report of shots fired?
I believe that was one of the first things I heard over the radio before I was even there.
And she testified that was about 4:40.
Do you recall ever finding out where the shots fired came from?
Eventually I did.
In the heat of the moment, it was irrelevant to her.
Do you recall in your
The prosecution
Reading
would be
report.
done by now.
writing that when you had arrived at Elizabeth and West
Add charge 77, kale
and
sandwich.
parked your squad and began to walk down the street, that you had your firearm in your hand?
Shots
Yes.
fired.
And was that because of the call of shots fired, or did you feel unsafe at the time?
That's because there were shots fired and I did not know by whom.
Not much. Not much different.
Did you get a report of anyone hit by the shots?
At that time, no. I did not know
It's
one way or
almost
the
like
other.
she
if anyone
wasn't
had been hurt.
investigating
Did you-
It had
shots
been hit. I knew
fired.
people were hurt.
Do you recall
She's not a
the
Waukesha
area
police
of where the
detective.
shots fired? Was that the general area?
What?
The general area, somewhere in the vicinity of the parade.
How different would this trial be if Brooks had a full command of the English language?
Is Elizabeth and West in the general area?
It's a few
Yes.
blocks away.
It's within easy walking distance, fleeing distance.
And you did state you didn't find any weapons on the suspect, right?
Correct.
That's because you ditched your
You find any
weapon,
shell casings or?
meaning a
No,
red Ford Escape, about a block to the east.
Do you have any reason to believe that the shots came from the suspect?
She didn't
I did not
investigate it.
know who had done shooting.
She
I had heard a
didn't
report of shots
investigate the
fired.
shots
I did not
fired.
know by whom, as I've said, sir.
Any reason to believe that the shots came from the suspect is what I'm asking.
She
I did not
didn't
know.
investigate who shot. She's not a Waukesha detective. She wasn't on scene. Why would she have knowledge other than third party?
And you stated that upon seeing the suspect on the porch, that they were gesturing.
Gesturing? Yes, sir.
I love how she just
And
corrected
you also
his
stated that
pronunciation.
in your written report that it was in the upper 30s that evening with the brisk wind. Would that be fair to say?
It was
Pretty
upper
cold.
30s, lower 40s, somewhere right in there. It was cold. I was cold.
Do you think that maybe the gesturing was because the suspect was cold? Grounds.
Okay,
Calls for speculation.
he's not mispronouncing
She
it.
may answer if she's able.
He's pronouncing it
I
gesturing,
didn't know.
as in he's a jester. He's a clown. Done.
And do you recall checking the general area around the house that you found the suspect?
Yes, sir.
Did you find anything around the house? I guess I'm referring to where you wrote in your report, you checked the likely path of travel.
Yes, sir. I do recall that. No, we did not find anything.
I'm assuming his hoodie was
And do you
found
recall checking the
somewhere.
pockets of the coat worn by the suspect?
Of what coat?
Yes.
What coat? He didn't have a coat on. I assume
Do
that
you
means they
recall how
found
the
his
suspect
hoodie?
obtained the coat?
Or are they referring to the
I
one,
recall what I was told.
the jacket the homeowner or the resident lent him? Which
So
coat are
it'd be
you
fair to
talking
say you
about?
wasn't sure if you were only told this information. That'd be fair to say?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
You made reference to saying you only know what you were told. So it'd be fair to say at that time you didn't know
What do amphibians have to do with
unless
this?
you were told.
Oh,
Didn't
told.
know
He
what.
he said told. I thought he was talking
How the
about
suspect obtained the
toad.
coat.
I asked the resident of the house you were at.
I like that. The house you were at.
Actually, I believe he volunteered to me that he had given you a coat to wear.
And you checked the pockets of the coat.
Yes,
They are very
And did you
pointless.
find anything?
I did not find anything.
And she's allowing the pointless questions as long as there's some semblance of relevance, just so that when he appeals, they can say he had a full and fair cross-examination but she is shutting him down when he gets off onto ridiculous subjects. Because like this, it's of no consequence, but an argument could be made that it's relevant.
At what point did you learn that
But
uh,
when he gets on to like this asking about the
the
state of
suspect
Wisconsin,
who was being
she's
detained
shutting him
would
down
be
on the
arrested?
90611 evidence rule
At some
pretty
point later.
quickly. Because basically, you can ask questions of no consequence, but still that are relevant. It's still a waste of time.
And it was another officer's vehicle that the suspect was
Millions
placed in, correct?
Correct.
between the cost of all the police officers who conducted the investigation, the prosecutors, the legal assistants, the judge, the bailiffs, the jail staff, the public defenders that
And
he
when did you leave
fired.
that scene?
It's expensive.
Not for hours.
Why so long?
Because she was on the scene of a major crime.
When there is a crime scene that potentially spans blocks,
Takes a lot of
everything needs to
manpower
be searched for evidence.
secure the
Witnesses
scene.
need to be located.
The scene
Because
needs
once
to
things
be
are gone,
secure.
things are gone. So it has to all be done right the first time.
And that takes a lot of people. Especially the crime scene spans well over a mile at this point. And that's just from the start of the
Did you write
parade
your report that
to Elizabeth
evening?
Street. You include the
I believe I wrote it the
ex-girlfriend.
next morning.
It's a
So it'd be fair
massive
to
crime
say
scene.
after you had learned a little bit more information, then you wrote the report?
That would be true, yes.
This pause, it could be a transition. He tends to pause before he transitions into nonsense.
In the video, Exhibit 80, the suspect gave you his name, right?
That's right.
That's correct.
Brooks. Darrell Brooks. Out of your own mouth.
Was that right when you handcuffed him, if you recall?
Right around that time, yes, sir.
But did you know I don't consent to that name?
And did you talk to any other witnesses that evening besides
404
the
bologna
owner of the
sandwich
home
not found.
that you saw the suspect?
No.
I'm shocked he hasn't brought up her jurisdiction yet, since she's not a Waukesha police officer.
In the hours that you stayed on Elizabeth, did you talk to any other witnesses at all?
No, I looked through a few yards and mostly maintained a perimeter for a search.
Do you recall why you looked through a few yards?
Searching for evidence.
Wow.
Do you recall what evidence you may have been searching for at that time?
Evidence. You don't
A
necessarily
lot of
know
times you
what
don't know until you
evidence
find
is
it.
until you find it.
So do you recall what maybe you might have been looking for a weapon or
Evidence.
anything like that?
Evidence.
That would have gotten my attention. Yes, absolutely.
Did you find any weapon?
No, sir.
The Ford Escape was found by a different officer. We already heard from him. And the person whose driveway you crashed it on.
Did you learn any knowledge of any ring video footage that evening?
I don't recall if I viewed the footage that evening or the following day. I did at some point view that ring footage, yes.
So you were aware that night that it was ring footage?
I believe I was aware of it that night. I don't believe I watched it, but I can't say with certainty.
I assume it's two-sided. I mean, you've got to consider public defenders' offices are
Do
woefully
you recall
underfunded.
initially responding to
So even saving
Clinton
by
Street and
printing
Broadway
double-sided.
first?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall why you responded to that location first?
To see if I could help anyone.
But then she realized she
About how
couldn't
long
take
did you
people
stay
in
there
her squad car
before
because they had
responding
back
to
injuries.
Elizabeth?
Clearly
Just a few
not
minutes.
long.
No further questions.
All right, thank you. Any
Fine.
redirect?
I'm shocked.
Referring specifically to the time that you
I'm
placed the
shocked.
handcuffs on Mr. Brooks. Remember that time frame?
Yes, sir.
I don't consent to being called that name.
You were instructed
Overruled.
to stop.
You may answer.
Thank you. Yes, I do.
Do you recall how Mr. Brooks ended up on the ground as that was happening?
I do.
Could you tell us about that?
Objection. Saw in video.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
We instructed him to put his hands up and then to get down on the ground.
Did he comply with those instructions?
He did.
Did you or any other officer have to put hands on Mr. Brooks to get him on the ground?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled.
Not
The
speculative.
witness may answer.
No, sir, we did not.
After he was on the
I
ground,
mean,
that's when the
she'd
handcuffs
know
went
if
on?
they had to put
Objection
correct.
leading.
hands on him.
Overruled. She may answer.
Your answer again was,
That's correct.
at any point after the handcuffs went on, did you or any other officer throw Mr. Brooks to the ground?
Objection leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
We did
I'm
not.
reminded of the
How
life
did
of
you treat Mr.
Brian.
Brooks as he moved him
Throw
from
him to the
his prone
ground.
position on the ground to the squad car?
Strike him, Centurion.
Overruled. She may answer.
That's my favorite movie.
As the video shows, he was instructed, let's call it the path of least resistance, to get up off of a prone position, eventually to his feet with a minimum of discomfort.
Did you successfully achieve that objective?
Objection speculative.
I'll rephrase.
Are you able to answer?
Yes,
Go ahead.
in as best as one can stand a person up when they have their hands handcuffed behind their back. Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may step down.
Well, I'm shocked. I thought for sure he'd bring up jurisdiction. How could
Statement called
you
next
have
witness.
arrested someone
Thank you. The
outside
state
of
calls
your
Officer Garrett
jurisdiction?
Luling.
And, all the plaintiff nonsense. But this would have at
Good
least
afternoon,
been
officer. If you would please make your way
somewhat
to the witness
relative-
stand, which is a
relevant
riser
sovereign
to
citizen
my right.
nonsense.
When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, who's on my left, will swear you in.
And he didn't bring up pay, or
Do you
are you
solemnly
being
swear that
paid
the
to be
testimony you're
here?
about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing
He's
but the
losing
truth,
his
so help you
touch.
God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please be seated. If you would please state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Sure. First name is Garrett. Last name is Luling.
That's quite
First
the
name is spelled
mustache.
Garrett. My last name is spelled Luling.
Thank you. Go ahead, Attorney Upper, your witness.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Officer Luling.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I want to direct your attention to the date of November 21 of 2021. And you are aware of the Waukesha Christmas parade taking place that afternoon. Is that
I
correct, sir?
think
Objection
everyone
Correct. I
does.
was working.
Hold on. Understand it's leading, there is some leeway when it's just laying foundation, so it's overruled and the witness may answer, and the answer he provided may stand. Go ahead.
Correct. I was assigned to work the Christmas parade.
All right. At some point in time, were you aware of injuries to those involved in the parade, sir?
Objection leading.
Yes.
Overruled. Make sure you wait till I roll on the objection, please.
Sorry.
And at some point later that evening, were you aware of a suspect being taken into custody in the 500 block of Elizabeth Street?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
All right, I want to direct your
She
attention to
needs
that
a
time
raise
frame,
too.
please. Did you respond to that area, sir?
Yes.
Where did you go?
I was initially parked setting up a perimeter near the area of Southwest Avenue in Wood. When I heard Specialist Klein come over the air indicating that there's a subject going door to door in the 500 block of Elizabeth Street, I then traveled north and to Elizabeth Street, which is right off of Southwest Avenue, Northwest Avenue at that point. and I traveled westbound on Elizabeth Street looking for the subject.
What did you see when you arrived in that area?
Initially, as I came to the area, I observed an officer from the village of McGuanago, an officer from the Big Bend Police Department, as well as an officer from the city of Delafield Police Department in the area. I traveled westbound, spotlighting residents in the general area looking for the subject. Initially, I didn't see anyone, so I made it to the end of the street, at which point I began to double back.
So
I briefly
his
stopped and
perimeter
spoke with
on West Avenue
some civilians in
and
the area,
Wood
saying, "Hey, if you see anyone,
two
call the police
streets
department,
to
let
the
us know."
south.
And as I traveled back eastbound on Elizabeth Street in the 500 block, I observed the three officers
I
from
do
those
too.
aforementioned police departments detaining one subject at gunpoint in the front lawn of 553 Elizabeth Street.
You had indicated there were people out and about, civilians.
Yes, there was some people out on their porches or patios. I had my lights going on my squad, so that drew attention for people to kind of look out and call out to me as I was making a Y turn.
Do you know about what time of day this was?
Not off the top of my head. It was dark out though.
Okay. As in relation to when the incident at the parade occurred to when you're arriving on Elizabeth Street, can you give us a rough time frame?
Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
45 minutes an hour at the max.
Okay.
That's about right.
So when you roll up on 553 Elizabeth Street, tell me what you saw.
So as I was coming back eastbound, I could see the lights from the other officers illuminating a subject on the ground. I immediately pulled up, parked my squad, got out and began running to where the officers were. And as I came up to where they were in the front lawn area between the residents and the sidewalk, they were in the midst of handcuffing and detaining a subject on the ground.
The subject that was being handcuffed and detained on the ground, you see that person in the courtroom here today?
I do, yes.
Are you able to identify him?
Yes,
Would you like him to remove his mask in order to do so, sir?
please.
Mr. Brooks, if you please. Thank you.
He's getting so annoyed when they ask him to
So
remove
the
his
subject I
mask.
saw was Darrell Brooks seated at the defendant's table wearing a dark colored suit with a gray shirt.
Now, you said he was already on the ground in the process of being handcuffed. Is that correct?
Yes,
Did you see any officers slam Mr. Brooks to the ground?
no,
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
It's
No.
what he
Did you see
saw.
any use of force directed towards
That's
Mr.
not
Brooks by any
hearsay.
police officer on the scene at that time?
Objection. Hearsay.
Overruled.
no,
Did you approach Mr. Brooks?
yes,
Did you speak to him?
yes.
What did you say?
I asked him to identify himself. At that time, he said Brooks. I again asked him to identify himself. He identified himself as Darrell Brooks.
That's the name he gave you, identifying himself.
Yes,
Objection. That's not what it says in the video.
It is what it
Oh,
says in the
overruled.
video.
yes.
And the
All right.
jury can decide
that name have
what
any
they
significance
heard in
when you
the
heard it?
video.
Yes.
Why?
I knew prior to responding to that location that Officer Moss, who had initially located the car, had
And remember, we
made
already
a
heard from Chris
cursory
Moss,
check of the vehicle.
Officer Chris
During that
Moss.
time, he found documentation belonging to a Darrell Brooks.
At some point, do you recall
It's
getting Mr.
almost
Brooks
like
up off the
everything's
ground?
dynamic but fits
Objection.
together.
Consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Tell us what you remember at that point.
They need to start
Um,
zapping him when he does that.
Or Darrell Brooks was picked up off the ground or assisted off the ground. He was then escorted to the front of my marked squad where I searched him.
At this point, are you probably the only officer from the city of Waukesha Police Department on the scene?
Objection. Speculative.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I was the only officer from the city of Waukesha at that time.
So you're the only
The
one with
other officers were
jurisdiction.
providing mutual aid to the city of Waukesha Police Department?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Yes,
Being the squad from the city of Waukesha and the parade occurring in Waukesha, did you take custody of Mr. Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that
Who
name.
cares?
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
yes,
And what kind of
Prior
sandwich did
to
Mr.
placing
Brooks
him in your
have?
squad, was Mr. Brooks searched?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes.
Tell us what you remember about that, sir.
So I searched Mr. Brooks, during which time I found some cards in his right pocket that had his name on it,
Oh.
as well as a black Ford key.
Oh.
When you say some
a
cards,
Ford
can you describe those
key,
further,
you
please?
say.
Debit or credit cards.
All right, I'm going to show for you an item that's been marked as Exhibit 176.
I wonder if it's for
previously
Ford
admitted,
Escape,
asked that it be displayed
a
for the jury
highly
again, Your Honor.
damaged Ford
No.
Escape.
Permission granted.
Objection.
You see the photograph on the monitor in front of you, sir?
Yes.
Do you see yourself in that photograph?
Yes.
Where are you?
I am the officer with his back to the
High
camera
vis
with
police.
written across a fluorescent yellow and orange vest.
Do you recall what you were doing at this point in time?
At that point, it looks like I'm buckling Darrell Brooks into the back of my squad,
All right.
replacing
The
him into the back of my
temptation's
squad.
there. Do you
Can
know what you were
see,
doing
a
at
set
that
of hands
time?
on the right side
I
of
was
the
baking
photograph,
a
sir?
cake.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
You see the objects that are being held in those hands, sir?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes.
Is that consistent with what you just testified as to the items you removed from Darrell Brooks before placing him in your squad?
Objection.
Overruled.
Consent to being called that name and it's
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes.
It's a little blurry, but can you circle for us the key that you indicated you found?
With my finger, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
He's probably testified in this courtroom before.
Because it's
So
a little
he
hard to
knows
see.
it's
Can
a
you
touch
describe that
screen.
key as you recall?
As I recall, the key was a single key. I don't recall there being any keychain to it. It was a fob type that had some buttons and it had a Ford emblem on it that indicated that was a Ford key.
Okay. What did you do with these items after you, well, strike that. Should ask a better question. Did you eventually get these items back from the officer who was holding them?
Yes.
And what did you do with them?
I took custody of them until they were ultimately turned over to
But did you
detectives.
tell the
Stern and
items
Detective
why
Spartan.
they were in custody?
Do you remember Mr. Brooks asking you why he had been detained?
objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled.
Yes.
You may answer, sir.
Come on,
Yes.
Judge.
Do you remember
Gag him.
specifically what he said?
I recall that he had questioned why the police were handcuffing him or why the police were detaining him.
Did you reply?
Yes.
What did you tell
They
him?
were
I told him that he was being
handcuffing him
detained as he matched a description
they
of
were a
subjects
little bit
involved in a
kinky.
crash in the downtown area.
Did you say anything about the parade?
No.
Were they fluffy pink handcuffs?
Thank you, officer. I don't have any other questions for you.
Any cross?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Do you recall speaking with Officer Moss that evening?
Not distinctly. There might have been some radio traffic between me and him at one point.
So it'd be fair to say that radio traffic, you guys spoke.
I can't tell you if I had direct contact with him or if I just recall him airing particular pieces of information.
Which would be Moss
Do you recall
saying
any
over the radio
particular
to all
bit of
responding
information that was
officers,
aired by Officer Moss?
we're probably looking
You're gonna have
for
to be more
Darrell
specific.
Brooks.
Do you recall Officer Moss airing that he had spoken with a potential eyewitness who indicated that they had observed numerous suspects run from the vehicle
Objection, hearsay.
grounds?
Overruled. The witness may answer.
I recall Officer Moss airing that to the officers responding in general that there may have been more than one suspect that had ran from the vehicle.
And do you
But once
recall
again,
if that
there are still
if that
people
aired
running
information-
from the parade in fear for their lives.
wait a second, back that up. You just stated that there may have been Any reason why the air information said it had been that he had spoken to a potential eyewitness?
Objection, hearsay, and
Grounds.
false or speculation as
He
to the words
doesn't
of another
know.
person.
Grounds.
Sustained.
You should have asked
Rephrase
this
your
to
question.
Officer Moss when he was on the stand last week.
Do you recall any air information of description?
Yes.
Darrell Brooks.
Do you recall what they were?
Objection, hearsay.
Grounds.
You're asking him the description of the suspect leaving the vehicle?
Get what he heard aired.
That's hearsay.
Overruled. You may answer.
I recall there being a description of either a light-skinned black male or possible Hispanic male wearing a white shirt, as well as the potential of a white male with curly brown hair.
Do you recall what you did after hearing that air information?
Yes.
What did you do?
I responded to Officer Moss's general location, at which point he requested that a perimeter be set up. So I responded further south to set up a perimeter to attempts to keep those people within the
And that
confines of
perimeter
that
was
perimeter.
Wood
Do
Street,
you
which
recall
was two
what,
streets to
what
the
general
south.
area that was?
Wood Street and West Avenue.
You're going to have to be more descriptive to what general area are we talking about here?
The area where Officer Moss was.
Officer Moss was at 338 Maple.
Is that the area that you responded to?
Generally, yes.
What do you mean by generally?
I was driving to the residence when he asked that a perimeter be set up.
And he set up the
And do you recall
perimeter
where you set that perimeter
at
up?
Wood.
Yes.
And where was that?
It was loosely around that residence as well as to the south. and to
It
the
was
west.
Wood and West Avenue. He said on direct.
What streets were to the south and to the west?
Numerous streets.
Well, I'm referring strictly to your perimeter that you set. Do you recall which street you set your perimeter?
Wood.
I want to say that I was probably the southernmost squad at that time, and I was at Southwest and Wood.
I'm sorry, what was the second street?
Wood.
Thank you.
That's 2 streets to the south of Elizabeth where the arrest was made. So when he found out that a suspect was spotted, he could respond real fast. It took more time getting in and out of a squad car than it did to drive there.
While setting up your perimeter, did you receive any more information about the suspects who fled from the vehicle?
It was all kind of at the same time.
Do you recall being advised that the male black had possibly fled southbound and that the male white may have fled in the westbound direction?
Your Honor, I object. Move to strike. He's providing statements and facts that are not in evidence. They're based on hearsay.
The
Sustained.
question was, did he recall being advised that?
It's still hearsay. It's not in
That
evidence.
was the question. Does he recall being advised?
Still hearsay. Sustained.
So who were you advised by?
Of advised what?
Officer Moss.
And do you recall what you were advised?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained. Next question.
Grounds for the sustain, Your Honor?
Hearsay,
Next
she
question,
said.
please. Hearsay.
Except we know he doesn't know what hearsay is. He still has not read the rules of evidence.
And how did you end up being dispatched to the 500 block of Elizabeth Street?
I heard another officer error that they were listening to Waukesha County communications indicating that there was a person going door to door in the 500 block of Elizabeth Street.
I'm sorry, you said you stated you heard that?
Yes.
He saw smoke
Can that be
signals.
like hearsay?
Only if it's being.
Come on, don't do that to me. Come on.
Vehicle.
Did we just skip forward in time? I have a feeling we skipped forward in time. It booted us into the present time, I think. But that was inappropriate for him to ask. Well,
So it'd
wasn't
be
that
fair to say at
hearsay?
the time of your report, you were confident that it was more than one person in the
Confident?
vehicle?
No.
So why did you write the report in that fashion?
I was confident that you were involved with that vehicle and with the crash in the downtown area.
So would it be fair to say that you could have written your report in that fashion instead of the fashion that you wrote it?
Argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained. As to the form of the question.
Any reason why you were referred to a passenger?
He didn't know.
Yes.
If there was a
Initially,
passenger
there
or
was
not.
reports that multiple people fled from the vehicle, from the area of the vehicle.
It's a dynamic situation.
And because of those reports is why you wrote your report in that fashion, or in the fashion that you wrote it.
Objection asked and answered, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained as to the form of the question.
I mean, it only counts if you say grounds twice. At least twice. Is this pause transitory or just the gears attempting to turn in his head?
So when you observed the suspect being detained at Elizabeth Street, at that time, did you know the suspect's name?
Eventually.
No.
He did when you said it.
And you found a credit or debit card when conducting a search?
Yes.
Do you recall where you found that credit or debit card?
In the sandwich.
Your right pocket.
Oh.
in Exhibit 176, where it shows someone holding the credit card. Was that you
No.
Was what me?
holding the credit card?
No.
But you are the one that found it.
Yes.
And then he handed it to the previous witness as he was taking custody of you.
And what else did you find?
That's blasphemy, Static.
A
We all
Ford
know
car key.
credit
vehicle
card
key.
with cheese is better.
And where did you find that?
Your right pants pocket.
You play Exhibit 80 for the witness.
Just the witness?
Stay able to do that, please? The entire
Can you-
video or just a part of it?
I'm guessing around the 4 minute and 50 or something, somewhere up in that area.
Your guess.
Last 10 seconds, sir. Is that what you want?
That's
Yeah,
when
somewhere up
it's
in that area.
That's when there's technical
look at it. Is
difficulties.
that where you want us to start? Or farther back?
A little further back.
Thank you, Miss Gussie. How about there?
Uh,
436.
a little further back. I'm sorry. Maybe. Yeah, wherever it's at right now, 409. Can you play it from there real quick?
I agree. That's
want
why
the
I
sound
keep
I
telling
gave
you to bribe your friends and family.
I don't really think the sound is necessary. More so the visual.
Okay. Playing from 415.
And how does he think this helps?
Do
him?
you remember this video?
No, I don't. I didn't. That's not my body cam video.
Pause. Go back like 2 seconds.
Thank you once again
Is-
for doing that.
Is that
Are you sourdough
It's touchscreen,
or
right?
Wonder Bread?
is this right here? The credit debit cards that you found?
Because we all
I
know
can't tell
Wonder
what that
Bread
is.
is kind of shifty,
Can you clear that?
unreliable.
Madam Clerk, please and thank you.
Thank you. Can you go back maybe 2 more seconds? I
Please.
think it's a clearer shot.
For the record, Your Honor, it's not that easy to just jump back 2 seconds. I mean, if he has a specific time, we can jump to a time.
How would I know if I've only seen the video once?
That's on you.
Why is it that big of a deal?
That's on you.
Can you play from right there? Right there,
435, Your Honor.
435.
Is that you in the high vis on the
Started
Can you
left?
pause it at
Four.
435?
Right, it was started and then you said pause, and obviously it takes time to do that, so. And the record should reflect that Mr. Brooks has drawn a circle around something on the still image. Go ahead, ask your question.
The record should reflect on consent to that, man.
Who cares?
Ask your question, sir.
Around the 435 mark, you can see
No,
whoever
that's just a
this
sin.
is holding the credit card, debit card. Is that you?
No.
Objection, that assumes the fact not in evidence, Your Honor.
Sustain. Rephrase your question.
Can you clear that?
Madam Clerk, please.
Please. He's so rude.
You said that you found a key. Where's the footage of you finding a key?
I don't have a body cam, so there's not going to be video of my body cam.
So if you were wearing your body cam, it would have depicted what you found during
He
your
doesn't have a body
search.
cam.
No, the city of Waukesha did not have body cams during this incident.
And we all know video or it didn't happen.
So it'd be fair to say there is no footage of you finding a key.
That's what he said.
Grounds.
It's argumentative, and he's already said he was not wearing a body camera.
Actually,
He can't
he
know
said,
possibly, it's speculation, he can't know possibly.
actually, he said the city of Waukesha didn't have body cams. He didn't say.
Right,
What do you
sustained,
need
it
as
assumes
certified
Facts
proof?
not in evidence and calls for speculation on the part of this witness.
Do you
and
need
there's
Judge
also lack of
Darrell to
foundation as
provide
this
it?
witness.
The foundation is this mysterious key he said he found.
The jury will disregard that statement made by
Seriously?
Mr. Brooks. It's not his time to
Stop
testify. You
arguing.
will have an opportunity to do that later if you choose.
I don't consent to being called that name for the record.
It's definitely taxing. I mean, I could sit down, just watch it and be fine, multitasking, just having it on in the background. Actually streaming it is exhausting.
Madam Clerk, you can take that off.
That's cruel and unusual of them. When I was in the hospital, apparently I could order food from the restaurants, from the food court downstairs, but no one told me until like the second to last day I was there. So until then, I just suffered on hospital food. I was so annoyed
At
when they
any time that
finally told
evening, were
me.
you able to detain any other suspects?
No,
The gears are turning. Or is he doing the transition?
After the suspect was
I
detained,
guess for
do
me
you
it
recall
was
how long you
about
stayed at
a
the
week and a
scene?
half. So,
which particular part of the scene?
Where you had detained the suspect.
At 553 Elizabeth Street.
Correct.
Off my best estimate, I was probably there for about 25 minutes.
time to get him in cuffs,
And
get
what
him
did
in
you
the
do in those
car,
25
and
minutes?
take him to the.
During those 25
Police
minutes
station.
was time detaining you, as well as
I
briefly
like that,
speaking with the
detaining
homeowner,
you.
and ultimately turning you back over to detectives.
And what did you do from there?
From there, I went back into a perimeter position.
Would that be referring to the perimeter that you mentioned that you had set
Yes.
around the area of where
Yes.
Officer Moss was located?
Yes.
And how long did you stay at that perimeter?
Until he was done.
I'm not 100% positive. Extended period of time.
Do you recall why you were dispatched back to that perimeter?
To keep the perimeter.
At that time, there was a possibility that there may be another party involved. So as the investigation was still ongoing and they're attempting to determine if there was another party involved, the perimeter was maintained so that no one could
At least you finally
squeeze
found
through that
out.
perimeter and flee.
I think it was my mom that was told, and then she took me down to get lunch.
And do you recall there being ring footage of the residents of 553 Elizabeth Street?
Yes.
Did you view those? Did you view the ring footage that evening?
No.
It's almost like he got back to the
Did you view the
perimeter.
ring footage at all?
Yes.
Question is he reading his
Are you
former
aware of
attorney's
what happened
notes,
to the ring footage?
or is he just scanning the
A
report?
copy of the
for
ring footage was
anything
emailed to
he
me by the
sees?
homeowner. It was ultimately placed on property inventory at the Waukesha Police Department.
In property inventory, not evidence inventory?
Do you recall if it was multiple videos?
It
It was, yes.
Do you recall at about 1640 hours? I don't know. Would that be 440?
Yes, that's 440.
Is this guy serious?
Do you recall directing traffic at the intersection of Barstow Street and Corina?
Yes.
I know where Barstow is. Don't know Karina yet.
And do you recall an officer hearing anything over the radio at that time?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall what that was?
An officer had aired that you had driven around his barricade or
I like
into
that.
the parade route.
You.
Who do you refer to as you?
You.
Darrell Brooks.
And you knew that at that time.
Not at that time, no.
So how would you say you?
He was told.
throughout the investigation was determined to be him.
Always identify him. If you're given a chance, always identify him. Drill it into the jury's mind.
Do you recall it being any other air information at that time?
Yes.
Do you recall what that was?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Grounds.
Are you offering it for the truth of the matter asserted or for some other reason? Otherwise,
For
it's
the
hearsay.
truth of the matter, I'm asking him, does he recall what was aired? On his
Is he
radio?
Well,
serious?
then you're asking him to testify to hearsay, so it's sustained.
Hearsay, an out-of-court statement offered for the proof of the matter asserted. She asked you, are you offering it for the proof of the matter asserted or for some other reason? Well, for the
Do you
proof.
recall
But
officer
hearsay.
indicating that the vehicle was continuing westbound and possibly blaring its horn?
Objection.
Grounds.
Same objection, Your Honor. He's attempting to testify and offering hearsay statements into the record.
I'm not attempting to testify.
You
Sustained.
are, and it is hearsay.
Grounds for the sustain.
Hearsay.
For the reasons the state indicated.
Yep, shake your head, shake your head. I don't understand, so I'm going to be mad and huffy.
Do you recall?
You can ask the witness if he heard any horns at that time. That would be different.
Don't help him.
But what someone else may have reported would be hearsay if it's offered for the truth of the matter
Don't
asserted.
help
Well,
him,
I'm
Judge.
reading from the report that he wrote.
That doesn't make it
That
not
doesn't take away that
hearsay.
it's hearsay. If
In
it's in the
fact,
report and someone else
depending
said
on
it's
how
actually
you're
double
using
hearsay.
it, it might be double hearsay. Which I think is what the judge just said, but with
Do
me
you
talking
recall
over her.
hearing about a vehicle blowing its horn?
Objection.
Grounds.
Same
Hearsay.
objection, Your Honor.
Do you recall hearing
Overruled, he asked if
about...
this witness heard.
No,
That's
he
how I
asked,
heard the
did
question.
you
I think that's what you
recall
were asking.
hearing
You mean
about a horn
was-
being blown?
About a horn.
What did you hear, Your Honor?
If the question was, did this witness hear a horn, then the witness may answer the question. Did he hear about a horn?
Then it's
That's
hearsay.
different. That would be hearsay. So why don't you rephrase your question, sir?
Did you hear a horn?
No.
And just so we're clear, I assume that your question meant when he was at Barstow and Carino. Because that's the Rio's position,
Correct.
right? That's what you meant?
Yeah.
Was that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, very well. Next question.
Once again, you've got to be specific. It could have been objected to as vague.
Do you have any other questions for this
Yeah.
witness?
Yeah.
He's just got to think of them first.
Any reason why it would
Argumentative.
be in your report that a vehicle was blaring its horn?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
Assumes facts not in evidence.
And
Also
it's hearsay.
Sustained.
Have you read the complaint in this matter?
Oh, sovereign citizen.
No.
He's back to it.
Have you seen the complaint in this matter?
Why would he?
No.
Have you made a complaint in this matter?
You yourself filed a claim in this matter?
No.
You know of anyone who filed a claim in this matter?
Objection.
Grounds.
Relevance.
Overruled. He may answer if he knows.
No.
Do you recall whom subpoenaed you to testify here today?
The state of Wisconsin via the Waukesha County District Attorney's Office.
You said state of Wisconsin. Who would you be referring to when you say state of
The
Wisconsin?
The
Waukesha
entity that is the state
District
of Wisconsin
Attorney's
judicial
Office.
system.
So the state of Wisconsin is an entity to the best of your knowledge.
Objection.
Yes.
Is an entity a living, breathing human?
Objection.
Irrelevant, argumentative.
Sustained.
90611.
Do you know if the state of Wisconsin is the plaintiff in this matter?
Yes.
90611.
Objection, argumentative.
Grounds.
Sustained.
Girl in the gallery didn't like that question either.
Have you ever had any interaction with the plaintiff in this
Come
matter?
on, Judge.
Objection.
Grounds.
90611.
Irrelevant.
Grounds.
Sustained. It's also overly broad.
Come on, Judge. You can do it.
You ever had a phone conversation
Objection, irrelevant.
Did the plaintiff touch you when you were 11?
with the plaintiff?
About this case,
About this case?
overruled.
I mean,
in the answer.
It's
No.
standard sovereign citizen gobbledygook, John. But in this case, it's highly offensive. I mean, in his hour-long rant last week, you still haven't shown me an injured party. There's 6 in the ground.
Have you ever seen the plaintiff in this case?
Objection, Your Honor.
Grounds.
This entire line of questioning is completely irrelevant.
Grounds.
90611.
Sustained on relevance grounds. Next question, please.
He's just got to think of a new way to ask it. I mean, to ax it.
No further questions.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Any redirect?
No, nothing else. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. This will be a good opportunity to take a mid-afternoon break as well.
Had a feeling that would be the case.
I'll rise for the jury, please.
He gonna argue.
You can step off. Thank you. We'll be in recess for 15 minutes. Thank you, everyone.
All right. With that, I'm going to take my short break and I'll be back with you momentarily. All right, I'm back. I think we were all caught up. Yep, the live is still on break. So after the complete surprise of the first witness of the afternoon not receiving sovereign citizen questions, even though it would have been the perfect opportunity for him to say, "You're not a Waukesha police officer. Did you have jurisdiction?" He got back to the sovereign citizen questions with the actual Waukesha police officer. So I I found that interesting. Um, of course, he's any the only thing that surprises me more than his consistency is his inconsistency. uh, If that makes sense, because he consistently asks dumb questions, irrelevant, abusive questions, but then some witnesses he just completely forgets to. And I think that might actually surprise me the most. And I like I said, coming back from lunch, I really think we're getting pretty close to the close of the state's case. And I I hope that at the end of today's testimony we get a roadmap, because at some point the jury is going to be taken to the scene, and they're going to be taken to the secure location to examine the escape. And I'd like sort of a roadmap from the court and from the prosecutors outlining when that's going to happen, because I assume neither of those will be streamed, both due to the logistics of streaming it, but also because they'd almost have to show the jurors in order to stream on location. And it just it wouldn't make sense from my point of view. So I'm guessing we could have a day off, or at least half a day off, at some point this week. I don't know when, but um and since you're new here, John, I, I don't know if I said welcome. Um are you familiar with sovereign citizens and with their lore and mistaken beliefs? Because I realize when you asked if I'm an official member of LawTube, I realize there are some people covering this that don't cover sovereign citizens at all. And then there's the people who, if there's anything interesting in the sovereign citizen world, they jump right to it. And so, sort of, the whole LawTube world has stopped in its tracks to follow this. So I'm curious which side of that you've joined us from, or even both. Um, but you mentioned not a whole lot of people have streamed the whole thing. It's definitely an interesting one to stream, but it's difficult. you're in the right place then. I'm absolutely fascinated with the delusion that leads to sovereign citizens, but definitely not one myself. Uh, and I tend to watch the channels that make fun of them. Whereas, like, I realize the Venn diagram is pretty close to a circle between sovereign citizens and First Amendment auditors, but I think one of them is a delusion, and one is just people being jerks, going on a power trip, and they're a lot less interesting. Um, on occasion, I'll watch them, but it's a pretty rare occasion that I do. Um, so, but yeah, at this point, like I said, I think the prosecution has pretty much they've pretty much reached the point where most of the charges are proved up. I still I still hope they bring in another witness for the dancing grannies, but I don't know if they have anyone on their witness list that wouldn't be a surprise witness at this point. So there might be a few acquittals, but at least as far as the both the homicide charges and the leaving the scene of an accident with death involved, those 12 charges are the highest charges and they've been proved up. So I caught the joke in that. I appreciated it. Um and I still don't know what proof he'd accept. I mean, Judge Darrow has been more than patient, more than accommodating with him. And on Friday, due to his incessant haranguing her about subject matter jurisdiction, she provided him with a written decision on it. She didn't have to do that. But it's not a certified official ruling somehow. I don't know if he'd only accept it with in affidavit form because somehow affidavits are magical, or if it needed like a judicial seal, like if it needed a stamp from Congress, from the Supreme Court. I mean, did the hand of God need to reach down and sign it? Uh, that's what it that's exactly what sovereign citizenry is. It's magical words. It's thinking there's some sort of incantation to absolve yourself of responsibility. And that's it. You'd think a judge's signature should be better than a stamp because it's individualized. It's uh, you know, the judge's clerk could use a stamp from the judge's desk, whereas her signature is hers. It's as official as it gets. So the quantum grammar, ooh, someone there was a post on the Sovereign Citizen Reddit last week. It was on I think it's the r/am I being detained, and it was a quantum grammar filing. Uh, I don't understand how people think that's real. It beyond the guy in the wizard robes in Hawaii who was thoroughly destroyed twice in the classic sovereign citizen courtroom clips. I couldn't cover quantum grammar beyond that. If if there were a quantum grammar sovereign citizen on trial for murder, I don't think I could do it. I I think I would have a brain aneurysm before they got through their opening statement. Because quantum grammar is just that insane. And my brain would try to comprehend what they're saying and how it works. And I just couldn't. I mean, how does having a semicolon make something a fact? It it doesn't. A semicolon just combines two disparate thoughts into a sentence. It yet somehow it's a signifier of fact, or is that a full colon slash hyphen? I mean, and then did so who are the two main quantum grammar people? There's David Wynn Miller and another guy. And didn't the original one die? And Miller held a court martial to kick him out of the post office court, the postal court. I mean, and just as dumb as this is, imagine if these people put this much thought into doing something useful. I mean, if David Wynn Miller had put this into code breaking instead of nonsense, you know, he could have been celebrated like Alan Turing cracking the Enigma code. Because frankly, this is just as ridiculous, just as incomprehensible as Enigma. Let's see. I'm betting, since
Thank
Law
you.
Talk
Be
with
seated.
Mike does playlists, I bet he has
Before we bring the jury
a
back
playlist
out,
for
if we
both
could
of
just
them.
maybe talk scheduling for a moment.
Hey, this is
We
what
are
I was
back on the
hoping
record,
for.
and the audio's on, so that's good. Attorney Opper, where are you at for today? I presume you have probably another witness or so.
Yes, we were just discussing that as well, Your Honor. I have one more witness whom I believe will be shorter in duration. And then we would be prepared to start with another witness who is lengthier, probably about an hour for direct examination.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, probably about 4 hours because
Oh,
of the
4
recording
hours.
interviews that need to be displayed to the jury. So we could either start
That's a
that
full
witness this
day.
afternoon and get some of it done and finish with him in the morning, or just start fresh with him in the morning.
And then do we have the interpreter coming tomorrow?
Yes, and we have that interruption or pause in our case scheduled. I'm told the interpreter will be ready, or excuse me, available anytime between 9:30 and noon. So maybe around the time of the mid-morning break, we would pause what we're doing in the state's case and turn to the defense witness.
All right.
And then, Your Honor, truthfully, at this point, we are probably on track to rest sometime on Wednesday. We've done good today. We're on schedule for today, but especially if we have to interrupt with that defense witness tomorrow, we don't think we'll be able to finish until sometime on Wednesday.
Okay.
Russell
Understood.
J. Gould.
And have you been in contact with the witnesses
That's the
that were
OG
subpoenaed by
quantum
Mr. Brooks
grammar.
to let them know about when they will be needed?
Yes, and we will need further direction on that from Mr. Brooks as far as what order he would like them in and when he wants them here. And again, depending on how this shakes out, I think probably about this time tomorrow, we'll be in better shape to know if we would perhaps get to defense witnesses Wednesday afternoon.
And once again,
or just
this
start
is the
Thursday morning with
prosecution
defense
going
witnesses.
over and above,
If he lets us know the order he wants
helping
them
him
in,
get his witnesses
we
in.
can start making those arrangements on his behalf. But
Not
now,
to mention
right now, they all
his
know that they're essentially on
meltdown
call for
and
more
rant.
towards the end of the week.
Right. And if my memory serves, the witness who would be called out of order, is that Juan Marquez?
Yes.
All right. So you should probably be ready to have that person, because that's when we have the interpreter available tomorrow sometime. I presume you still want to call that witness? All right. And so just be prepared to do your direct when we can fit it in at the appropriate break, and depending on where we end with witnesses tonight. And then if you would let the state know the order of your witnesses, so we can have them come at different times. So
I
that
wonder
they're not
what
all here
Juan
for days
Marquez
waiting to be
will
called.
testify about.
Respect. The prosecution didn't tell me the order of their witnesses. Why do I have to tell them the order of mine?
Because they're
assisting you
procuring
in
your
getting them to
witnesses
court.
for
They serve
you.
the subpoenas on your behalf. And as a courtesy to those witnesses,
They are
need you to
helping you
provide,
get your witnesses
um,
there.
I don't even care if it's the order, but if you say these three will be called in the morning, these three will be in the afternoon, that would be okay with me. I just want to be able to tell those witnesses through the DA,
I
you
mean,
three will
otherwise
be
they can
Wednesday
tell you
afternoon,
to
you
pound
three will be
sand
whatever the
and
number
that you
is.
can get
Will
them
be
there yourself.
Thursday morning and the rest Thursday afternoon, Friday morning, whatever it may be.
I get what you're saying, but it's still from what I'm hearing from the prosecution, they're not sure exactly when they'll be resting their case. So
I think they're trying to rest their case sooner rather than later, but they have some witnesses to get through. And what they're telling
you
us
waste
is
time,
that will be
it'll take
sometime on
longer.
Wednesday, given the pause that they will take in their case to call Mr. Marquez so that he can be questioned by you with the interpreter.
so wouldn't it make more sense to
No.
start calling my witnesses Thursday then? If
No.
No, you should be ready to go Wednesday afternoon. I'm not going to take a break for that. You should be ready to go. I mean, if we get done at 4:00 on Wednesday afternoon, that might be a different story, but it sounds like we should be able to call witnesses. Of course, you will need to let me know if you're going to give an opening statement. You had deferred that, and that could adjust some of the timing, but so
And
I
it's
need
gonna
you
be a rambler.
to provide that order to the state tomorrow when you come into court so that they
Full
can
of
work with those
relevancy.
I'll
witnesses
probably
better.
say I'm not going to provide a specific order. I'm not going to do that.
Well,
but
then you
I-
need to tell which day, like morning and afternoon, and how many witnesses per. I'm not going to just bring them in all at the same time and make them wait. That's not,
He
that would be
just
a
has to
discourtesy to
obstruct
those
any way
witnesses who you are
possible.
calling. So I want to have
He's
some
such a
idea
dick.
of what your game plan is for them.
I get that, but I'm still confused on. I
No
essentially
one can
didn't know who they was
unconfuse
calling
you.
in order.
But you weren't
That's
procuring
not really
the
relevant
witnesses
at this
for the
moment, sir. So I need you to
prosecution.
provide
They
the
are
order
helping you.
I'm not going to provide the order.
or by
Then they don't have to help
start
you.
Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning,
If you don't
Thursday
provide
afternoon.
the order, They don't have to
Friday
help
morning,
you.
Friday afternoon, unless they're very short. Just keep in mind, we generally have about, when we start at 8:30, we go till about noon. Probably start up an hour and 15 minutes after the lunch. So you have another couple of hours. So you should be able to know about how long you're going to question them, and just give us who those are for each of those blocks. And then be ready for Mr. Marquez tomorrow.
I'll be ready for that, but
All right.
I'll probably have an idea of who I think should come in, but I'm not gonna provide an order.
Well, if he
Then
wants some assistance, Your Honor, we will do that. Otherwise, he can be responsible for getting these
Exactly.
witnesses here
Exactly.
himself.
If the prosecution's doing you
gotta
a
cooperate
favor,
with this processor. They're
you don't
assisting
look a
you.
gift
Otherwise, you're
horse
going
in
to
the
be
mouth.
responsible for telling these witnesses when to come in.
And so how am I supposed to do that?
That's a you problem.
Well, then you should cooperate with the state and their assistance to help you, sir.
I'm not gonna give a specific order.
Sir, are you willing
Can I
to
have the
provide
sandwich?
the who the witnesses are by half day?
I just said that.
All right,
I
then
said I'm
that's
not
what I
gonna-
need by tomorrow
I said I'm
morning.
not giving an order, is
That's
what
fine.
I said.
I'm
You
okay
have
with
to
that.
give
And the
them
state will
who
be
you're
okay with that
calling
because I
the
said
next
they'll be
day.
okay with that.
We're
So,
okay, Judge. Thank you.
all right, thank you.
So what about what's supposed to be going on today? How late do we plan to go today?
We'll have to see how long this witness lasts and if we can start the next witness. I 4:30, 5 o'clock,
I'm
maybe even
guessing
5:30.
he's
We'll
going to
see.
waste a lot of time.
So with that, let's bring the jury out.
Are we gonna address subject matter jurisdiction at some
It's
point?
been done. The jury's on its way out.
Not
Subject
beyond what
matter
I've already
jurisdiction is
addressed. sir.
done. Unless you have
Which you addressed
new
it, you didn't prove
information.
it, you didn't verify it. It's not verified proof that you have subject matter jurisdiction.
Unless you
It's not
have
been
new
proven on the
information that she doesn't, it's done. I mean, does he wait until the jury's on its way out so that they hear him?
Is that a judicial determination, Your Honor, that you're not gonna answer that?
Is it a tacit agreement?
Your request is noted for the record. I've already addressed it.
Is it noted for the record?
Yes.
It should be noted for the record also, that's a tacit agreement.
All rise for the jury, please. Thank you.
You already been rising. Wondering when we go get the answer to that subject matter jurisdiction. though.
It's already been answered. It's done. You don't like it, but it's done.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Attorney Opper, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Officer Leha.
Good afternoon, Officer Leha. If you would please make your way to my witness stand. When you get there, please remain standing, raise your right hand. My clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. And I should say the witness stand. I don't have ownership over it, but in any event, state your first and last names for the record.
First name Darrell, last name Leha.
Could you spell both?
Darelon, last name Leha, Leija.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, your witness.
All right, thank you, Officer Leha.
He's going to be told.
Sir, I'd like to
slow
direct your
down.
attention to the evening of November 21, 2021. Were you working on duty that afternoon?
Yes.
All right, I should ask, where do you work?
City of Waukesha Police Department.
How long have you been a police officer?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. So on that evening, were you aware that the parade was taking place in downtown Waukesha?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you work the parade?
No, ma'am.
Do you recall what time it was when you came on duty, sir?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
I believe it was a little after 5.
Were you scheduled to work that evening?
Yes.
Okay. And around the time of 12 a.m. midnight. So now I think we're getting into the next day of November 22 of 2021. Were you asked to assist detectives at Waukesha Memorial Hospital?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go to that location?
So he's
I did.
probably taking statements.
And did you meet with anybody there?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Taking
Who did you meet with?
statements from injured parties.
I met with
this might be
Detective Jay Carpenter
rehabilitate-
and
oh.
acting detective at the time,
No.
Detective Stern.
I was hoping rehabilitating.
Did they
Lola
ask you to
from the
assist them in
Dancing
some
Grannies.
fashion?
Yes, ma'am.
What did they ask you to do?
I was
Objection
tasked.
leading.
What did they
Overruled.
ask
You
you
may
to
answer.
do is
I
not
was tasked
leading.
with transporting Mr. Brooks to the Muskego Police Department.
Okay. So at this point, Mr. Brooks is in custody.
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And the person you
So
were
he had been
asked
checked
to
out
drive
at
to
the
the Muskego Police
hospital.
Department, you see him in this courtroom here today.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you identify him, please? And if Mr. Brooks would please remove his mask, Your Honor?
Objection. I don't
Sir,
consent to
please
being
remove
called
your
that
mask.
name.
Oh, thank you, you were.
For the hundredth.
Apologies. Go ahead.
And for the 100th
It's the
time,
black male sitting at the
Who
table
cares?
with the black suit and the mask that he just put back on.
and your
Where did you first meet?
commentary
Hold on, the
is
record will reflect he did
unhelpful.
point to the defense table, and the record will reflect he identified him. Go ahead.
Okay. Where did you first meet Mr. Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Who cares?
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
The Waukesha Memorial Hospital, the police hold
Did
room.
Mr. Brooks have any sandwiches in
I'll
his
repeat that.
pockets
Mr.
at the
Brooks was
time?
talking over you.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. Go ahead, sir.
Send him to the other
At the
room.
Waukesha Memorial Hospital in the police hold room.
All right. And
Duct tape.
where were you going to take him?
To the Muskego Police Department.
Why?
Objection leading.
Why?
Overruled.
Why?
Detective Carpenter
is
said
a
that he
leading
was going to be
question.
there so that he can question them sometime.
Why?
In the future.
Is a leading question.
Is the Muskego Police Department located in the city of Waukesha?
No, ma'am.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
No, ma'am.
Why did you take him back to your police department?
It goes on your permanent sandwich.
Objection.
Overruled. You may answer.
At the time, we were at the
I think we might
annex,
be
which
hungry
is
today,
our older police
Today,
department,
John.
police department that we
We're
usually
stuck on the
report out
thruple of
report
the
out of
police
was
that
being
arrested
renovated,
him
so we didn't have any holdings.
and sandwich.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did the Muskego Police Department have a holding cell at their facility?
Objections.
Overruled. You may.
Do you
You may
do you
answer.
watch Law Talk
Yes,
with
ma'am.
Mike, John?
And they were willing to house Mr. Brooks there under mutual aid?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
So you put him in your squad car?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Tell us about that, your drive.
Objection relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
So I put Mr. Brooks in my squad car. We left the
Objection.
hospital around, I took custody of him around 12:18 a.m. We typed in my GPS to the Muskego Police Department. We left the hospital. We had to go eastbound in Wisconsin, which is a road that's parallel to Main Street where the parade was taking place.
Okay.
Once we passed while going eastbound in Wisconsin, there was multiple marked squad cars.
He's
there
racing.
with their
He needs
emergency
to
lights
slow
on.
down.
Do you know what they were doing?
So you wouldn't get the
Overruled. You may answer,
thruple
sir.
reference.
They're blocking traffic, investigating an incident that transpired earlier that evening.
Okay. Is it just, excuse me.
And
is
there's
it just
also
you
a
and
running
Mr. Brooks
joke
in the
right
squad
now on
car?
his channel
Objection. I
about a
don't consent to being
sandwich
called that name.
Overruled. You may
because he did
answer.
a clip
Yes, it was just me and Darrell Brooks
last
in the
week
squad car.
Okay.
Objection. I don't
where
consent
a
to being called that
prison
name.
guard was charged with trading
And as you traveled
extra
in
sandwiches
the
for
area of
sexual favors
Wisconsin
with an
Avenue, did
inmate.
Mr. Brooks make any statements?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Yes, Mr. Brooks said once we were going eastbound in Wisconsin, and I quote, he said, "Damn, it looks like they were dealing with something heavy."
Okay. Did you reply to him in any way?
No,
Did he continue to speak?
yes, ma'am.
What else did he say?
He's probably
He asked me if
already
there was a
been
basketball
Mirandized
game
at
going on or
this
something
point.
tonight, and to which I replied, "I'm not sure."
Okay.
But if he's just
Did you
spontaneously
continue
uttering,
on transporting him
Miranda
to the Muskego
doesn't
Police
matter.
Department?
Yes, ma'am.
And at some point, were you responsible for watching over him at the Muskego Police Department?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection relevancy.
Overrule, your answer may stand. Go ahead and just wait until I rule on the
Okay, I'm
objections.
sorry.
please. That's okay.
He's objecting after
How long
the
did you watch
answer.
him for?
Objection, relevancy.
Overrule.
I believe we got to the jail around closer to 1 a.m. I watched him up until about 7 a.m.
What kinds of things do you
That's a
remember he did
long
overnight?
shift. That's
Objection.
already 14
Relevancy.
hours on
Overrule,
shift.
you may answer.
I know that he was fed around 2 a.m.
I hope it was
He
Nutrilo.
slept most of the night. He got up around 5 a.m. Asked for water. I got him water. And he asked to make a phone call to his daughter.
Okay. Did you allow that?
No.
Did, you said it appeared he was sleeping throughout most of the night?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection, hearsay.
Overrule.
It's his observation. It's not hearsay.
Did
At
you
any-
answer?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Other than asking to call his daughter, did he make any other statements to you that you can recall?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled, you may answer.
I remember he made some complaints that the room was too bright. He wanted me to dim the room.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all I remember.
did Pookums
Okay.
have trouble sleeping?
Like the lights in the room were too bright?
Correct, in the cell, holding cell.
Did you turn off the lights for him?
Objection, leading.
Overruled, his answer may stand.
And were you relieved by another officer then later that morning?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled, you may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other questions.
Hey, Cross,
Yep.
that's a yes?
Yeah.
That's a yes.
Go ahead.
You said that you recall checking every 30 minutes on doing like well-being checks.
You were probably on you know
That's
what
correct.
aside watch.
And how do you know for sure that the suspect was asleep?
I don't know for sure if you
You
were
were
sleeping.
laying
I know
on the
that
bed,
the
sucking your
cover was
thumb.
over your head. And I would, every time I go and check in on you, I could see that your chest was rising up and down from underneath the blanket. So it's a possibility that you were sleeping. It's a possibility that you weren't. I know that you were undercover, so it appeared that
You
you were
weren't
asleep most of the
dead,
night.
and you weren't pacing.
So it'd be fair to say you're not sure.
Who cares?
Stands, Your Honor, to ask an answer.
Objection.
Overruled, he may answer.
Who cares if he was asleep or
Could have
not?
been sleep. You probably asleep. You probably wasn't, but the blanket was over your head most of the night.
Bingo. I won't say that word either, though, because I think YouTube doesn't like that one just as much as you know what aside.
And do you recall why the suspect was not allowed a phone call?
Because you're not entitled to a phone call.
I was told that you had to wait for Detective Jay Carpenter to talk to you.
Contrary to what
Do you
television
know if
would
that's
have you
standard
believe,
practice?
you're not entitled to a phone call.
Not sure if it's standard practice or not, but just following his instruction, as if because he was going to be doing some investigation.
Would you say it's fair to say that usually a suspect being detained is allowed a phone call at some point?
Relevance.
Grounds.
Relevant, sir?
Grounds.
Relevance.
No. Why do you believe it's relevant?
Why would contact to the outside world be restricted?
Right, it's,
Why is that
well,
relevant?
Rule that it's not relevant, sustain the objection. Next question.
And once again, you're not entitled to a phone call. I mean, the phone call is, number one, you're not entitled to a phone call to family. The phone call is to an attorney or to a bail bond agency. You weren't getting bond.
You recall what time you got to, I think it was, you said, the hospital?
And
to
unless
pick
they
up
were
the suspect?
questioning you, they didn't have to provide an attorney yet either.
Yes, I left at 12:10. I got to the hospital around 12:18.
To the best of your recollection, do you recall being given any information at that time about the suspect being questioned?
I don't recall if I was giving information on you being questioned at that time.
So you hadn't read the full report on the investigation up to that point? Isn't that malpractice? It's almost like a basically rookie officer. It isn't doing the work of a seasoned detective or even privy to the work
And you
of
refer
a
to
seasoned detective.
a police hold room inside of the hospital?
That's correct.
So it's not unusual for someone to be detained in the police hold room inside of the hospital.
That's probably why they have
That's
a
correct.
police hold room.
There's an active investigation going on.
So would that be the only time if during an active investigation?
Usually someone from the outside coming to the police hold room, yes, for an active investigation.
I mean, he probably doesn't attend
Do you
many
recall where
birthday
in the
parties
hospital
in
this
that
police
room.
hold room is located?
Objection, relevance, and
In the hospital.
Do you recall where
like
in the hospital it's
the
located?
jail administrator who testified right
Usually
before
by
the trial
the
started.
where police officers
I'd be
park their
objecting
vehicles through
because
the
I don't
ambulance
want this
bay.
to be public
Straight ahead, and
information.
it's the second to last door on the right.
I don't want that as public information.
To the best of your knowledge, do you know if those police hold rooms have cameras?
I'm not sure.
It's the timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly Doctor Who.
Before that
Phone
particular
call.
incident, had you ever been in the police hold room in that hospital?
Yep. Yes, sorry.
Did that person run over a parade? So Brooks tends to take
And you
like
stated
double
that
or triple the time
detectives
on
informed
cross
you that
compared to the direct
they would
examination.
need to speak
If they're
with the
expecting
detainee
4
before any phone
hours
calls would be made.
of direct for one witness, his
That's
cross could be 2 days. I mean,
To the best of your recollection, did they explain
that could be brutal.
why to you?
Objection, relevance.
Grounds.
Calls for speculation.
Grounds.
I'm sorry, calls for hearsay.
Grounds.
and
Calls for hearsay.
Are you offering it for the truth of the matter?
Yep.
asserted?
Then
And
it's hearsay.
hearsay.
You'd think he'd have learned from last time she asked him, "Are you offering it for the truth of the matter asserted?" It's hearsay. That's in the definition of what hearsay is. But despite the judges asking him to read it, he still hasn't read what hearsay
And
is.
the detainee was turned over to Officer Paulson after,
That's hearsay.
I'm guessing at the end of your shift.
That's
That's
hearsay. Again, not that it matters. It's inconsequential.
Do you recall if the cell the detainee was sleeping in that night had cameras?
Wait, he doesn't know if you were
I'm
sleeping.
not sure.
Cells don't always have cameras. They have cameras outside of cells, but the cells don't always have cameras. E- even prisoners deserve to poop without cameras.
Do you recall who did the booking process at the Muskego Police Department?
Yes, I believe it was Lieutenant Andrika and Officer Klink of the Muskego Police Department.
Officer Klink? I can't wait till he gets
To the
promoted to
best,
sergeant.
to the best of your recollection, do you recall why one of those officers weren't doing the well-being checks?
Because they weren't assigned to it.
Because you were in our custody.
All right. Muskego is southeast of Waukesha. Still a Milwaukee suburb. Although it looks like there's some green space between Waukesha and Muskego. The little hamster in his head is, running out of steam. I still don't know.
Do you recall when you did your report?
I honestly
The date of
don't
it?
know how he thinks these questions help.
I don't recall the exact day I did my report.
Was it that same evening or was it sometime after?
When you say the same evening, what date are you talking?
The same evening.
He's a
evening or
third
morning
party
that you
intervener,
ended up having to do the well-being checks.
but he's representing
Mosquito
his
Police
client.
Department.
So
I don't recall if I did it that day, but it most definitely was done.
And
shortly
once
after.
again, third-party interveners are a thing.
Shortly
in
after,
civil
meaning
cases.
a few days or a week or so.
A few days.
You don't recall if it was the 29th
Like,
of November?
the most
2021?
famous instance of a
I don't
third-party intervener I can think of was the California gay marriage case from like 2012. We discussed it my first year of law school. Conveniently enough, discussing interveners. And that's because the state of California wasn't defending Prop 8. So a third-party intervener stepped in to defend
When you were
Prop 8.
dispatched to the Waukesha Memorial Hospital, did you observe any FBI agents at the scene?
I tell you what, I
At
wouldn't
the
be
scene of the
willing to
hospital?
end up
Yes.
in prison
No.
for my client.
So to the best of your recollection, it was only the two detectives that you made contact with.
Yes.
He followed up as a rookie patrol officer with every single person on scene. He built this entire case himself. He even put up the barricades, manned all of the barricades simultaneously, honked the horn for you.
Can you explain what the mobile audio video recording system is?
Is it's an in-squad camera that records outside of the squad car, so like in front of the squad car in the prisoner compartment. And it's a microphone that we put to our vest or on our person to record audio statements.
So it records and it's video and audio.
Yeah.
Correct.
Did it record the detainee during your transport?
Yeah, the prisoner
Yes, it did.
compartment was recorded. That's what he said. You were in the prisoner compartment.
Besides the statements that you made reference to, did you
What if the pants are too soft, though?
observe or hear anything other than those statements?
What do you mean? Can you clarify it for me?
I mean, FBI agents did
Did you observe anything
some of
strange
the
or
witness interviews,
while
but that's
the
just because
recording was taking
I'm
place?
sure because there were too many people
I don't know what you mean by strange.
for the Waukesha
Did
Police
you notice any
Department
strange
to
movements by the
interview.
detainee? Anything that would alarm you in any way?
Nothing that would alarm me, no.
Time for sovereign citizen nonsense. Unless he finds something else in this.
Did you know the
police
extent
report.
of the investigation at the time you were dispatched to Waukesha Memorial?
No, my only task was to transport you to the Muskego Police Department.
Uh-oh. He's running out of things to take off the... Oh!
No further questions.
Oh! No
Please
sovereign
redirect.
citizenry.
Nothing else. Thank you,
I'm
Judge.
shocked.
Thank you. You may step down. Go ahead and call your next witness then, please.
Detective Jay Carpenter.
The joke is, at least from this, he was arrested trying to find a Lyft, an Uber, and he was knocking on doors, and one of the people who allowed him to use his phone gave him a sandwich, which the police later found in his pocket. Bringing us into the new phrase of a pocket sandwich. Never leave home without a pocket sandwich.
Good afternoon, Detective Carpenter. If you would please make your way to the witness stand, which is to my right. It is up one riser. When you get there, please remain standing. Raise your right hand, and my clerk, Teresa, will swear you in.
We still don't know what kind of sandwich it was, though, or if it was submitted into evidence. That's the only thing I want to know.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. The first thing I will ask you to do is to state your first and last names for the record and spell each.
Sure. My name is Detective Jay Carpenter. First name spelled Jay. Last name spelled Carpenter.
That's a
Go
good
ahead.
way to spell.
Sir, how are you employed?
I am employed as a detective with the City of Waukesha Police Department.
How long have you been in law enforcement?
18 years?
Have all those years been with the City of Waukesha Police Department?
Yes.
How long have you been detective?
Almost 5 years.
Direct your attention to November 21st of last year. Were you working on that day?
Yes, I was.
Were you working the parade?
I had actually been part of the parade. I marched in the
Ooh.
parade as part of our honor guard unit and had completed my duty before the incident commenced.
So this is the City of
Officer
Waukesha annual holiday
Moss,
parade.
who found
Correct.
the car, was in
And
the
you
honor
say that
guard.
you, after you finished the parade route, where did you go?
So I went back to the City of Waukesha Police Department after I completed my part of the parade.
And I don't have a
And
pocket
did you receive
sandwich.
information
but
while
I
you were in
do
the City of
have a
Waukesha Police
pumpkin
Department
cookie,
regarding something
and
that
I'm
had
going to eat
happened at the parade?
Objection leading.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
I did. I changed out of my honor guard uniform and I was confronted by Officer Daniel Malo.
He was working as a desk officer for the department that day. Officer Melo explained that a vehicle had driven through the parade route down in downtown Waukesha, that there were approximately 30 to 40 people down, many severely injured, some possibly deceased, and that there was also an officer involved shooting involved in the whole event.
What did you do as a result of receiving that information?
That damn squirrel
At
on
that
the
point,
back
I went on
lawn
duty and began heading
meant he's
towards
not
the
doing his
downtown
job.
area.
Where did you go specifically?
So when I
Such a big
headed
squirrel.
out, there was a lot of radio traffic. It was very chaotic,
Massive.
very confusing. It was certainly like nothing I've ever experienced before, as far as the radio traffic. The event kind of began to mold into two different forms at that point, in that there were numerous officers calling for ambulances in the downtown area for the injured. But dispatch was also beginning to provide information that there was an individual in the area of the 500 block of Elizabeth Street, which is about a quarter of a mile off the parade route, that was loitering.
interesting,
and I
John.
believe that may be the suspect, so I headed in that direction.
Now, prior to heading in that direction, did you have
I
any
remember
information
going
as
to
to
the
why
Salt Lake
this person in that area would be a
St.
suspect?
Patrick's Day parade as a kid,
Overruled. He may answer.
but I don't remember much about
Yes,
it.
ma'am. A description had
But
been
the
provided of a possible
24th
suspect.
of July
and the
parade, which
descriptions
is
being provided by
Pioneer
this
Day, the
dispatch
great
of
big state
the individual
holiday.
now in this area were
They have the
comparable,
motorcycle
nearly
unit
identical
writing
to the descriptions I was
information,
hearing of the driver from the parade incident.
but they are spaced throughout the parade.
As
but
I was
if I
searching
remember,
the
they'll
area,
have like the Salt
I
Lake police, and
heard
then
over the
later
police
on we'll
radio
have
that
like the
officers from
Utah
a
Highway
separate jurisdiction
Patrol.
had come in contact with
But
the
there's
suspect,
such a
and that
huge police
he was in
presence.
custody. And
'Cause-
proceeded over to Elizabeth Street.
You know,
where
here this Christmas
suspect
parade, they
was
testified
identified in the
there's like
investigation
3 or
as Darrell
4,000. There might be
was
half a
already in
million
custody.
at this parade. 'Cause
Now, you
it's
stated that the information that
the
you
big
initially
parade
received with regard
for
to
the state
the
of
person
Utah.
involved's physical description, do you recall what that was?
Objection leading.
Overruled. He may answer.
Information that I heard over police radio was an African-American male, blue jeans, and a red t-shirt.
So what did you do after receiving this information about a potential person in custody?
I responded to the immediate area. Mr. Brooks at that point was already in custody. I don't recall if he was outside a squad being searched, but he was handcuffed and already effectively in custody at that point. He was placed in the rear of a city Waukesha police car, where he was taken into custody for loitering, as well as being a suspect at that point as the operator of the vehicle that went through the parade route.
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name for the record.
That's nice.
Overruled. Your answer stands. Go ahead. Next question.
At the time that you made contact with this individual, did you have any information about the vehicle that had been used during the parade?
Objection leading.
Overruled.
Yes, a red SUV.
Leading would have been.
That was actually.
Can you tell us
a
about the
Ford
red
Escape
SUV that
specifically?
Brooks drove through
And
the
did you have any
parade?
information if that car had been located at the time that you went to the Elizabeth Street address?
And
Yes, it had
leading
already
on
been
that
located.
would be, can you tell
Do you
us
have any
where the
information about
car
that
was
red
located,
SUV
or what was the
prior
car
to going to
located
Elizabeth Street?
next to
Objection.
this house?
Overruled.
The information I recall having is that the vehicle was parked over on Maple Avenue, which is about 2.5 to 3 blocks west of Elizabeth Street, where Mr. Brooks was located and taken into custody.
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name.
Overruled.
Did you have the opportunity to speak with an individual who was identified as Darrell Brooks at
Objection,
that
I don't
Elizabeth Street
consent to being
address?
called that name.
Go ahead. You may answer.
I don't believe I spoke with him at that address, but Mr. Brooks was transported to our substation located on Les Paul Parkway in the city of Waukesha, where I had opportunity to speak.
He's experienced
Did you
at
see him at the
testifying.
Elizabeth Street address?
You can
Yes,
see
I did.
because he
Did Do you see him
looks
in the
at the
court
judge
today?
when
I
he
do.
hears objection.
I'd ask the court to ask Mr. Brooks to remove his mask.
Thank you, Mr. Brook.
Can you identify him by where he's seated and what he's wearing?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brooks is seated to my left, wearing a dark-colored suit jacket, multicolored tie, surgical mask on his face, shaved head, and he did have a beard at the time.
Objection. This isn't a
Let the record
surgical
reflect
mask.
that the witness has identified the defendant.
It will reflect. Thank you.
Sir, as you see Mr. Brooks today, does he look different than he did on November 21st of last year?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am.
How?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
At the time of the incident, Mr. Brooks had longer hair, a braided style hair that probably went midway down his back.
How about facial wise?
He had a beard at that time, but it's a little bit shorter now. It was
Damn
a little
long
bit thicker and
hairs.
longer at the time.
So you stated that the defendant was transported to a
She definitely
substation?
has a cold.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay. And do you recall who transported him?
Specialist Mark Howard.
Did you follow Specialist Howard to the substation?
Yes, I did.
Upon either, should I say, at the scene, did you obtain items that were located on the defendant's person?
He has said
Yes, I did.
that.
What did they consist of?
And it's
So the items I received
it's
that were
ridiculous.
on Mr. Brooks' person
There's
at the
nothing
time of his
alleged
arrest,
about
there were
him being
several
a
items. One of
defendant.
them was a Wisconsin photo identification card. So it had a picture on the ID card that I recognized as being Mr. Brooks based on the fact I was with him at this time. The name on that identification card was Darrell Edward Brooks Jr., his date of birth being February 21st, 1982. There was also a green Wisconsin Quest card with Mr. Brooks'
He's-
name on it.
uh,
A silver
he's 3 weeks older
American
than my
Express debit or
sister,
credit card with Mr. Brooks' name on it.
roughly.
2 Visa debit cards, one
Because
black,
you all wanted
one
to know
white,
my
both
sister's
which
age,
had
I'm
Mr. Brooks'
sure.
name on it. And then there was a Georgia EBT card which had the name of Mr. Brooks' girlfriend on it.
Other than the identifying information that you just
Objection.
testified to, is
She
anything
wasn't
else
his
turned over
girlfriend
to you,
anymore.
that was removed from Darrell Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name and it's leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, ma'am. There was $4 cash, but also a Ford ignition key.
Ooh, he's a high roller. $4.
Now, you stated that there was a suspect vehicle that had been located.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have any information prior to your discussions with the defendant about who the owner of that vehicle was?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, I did.
And who was the owner of that
Leading
vehicle?
would be, did you
A
discuss
female by
this?
the name of Dawn Woods.
And do you recall what her address was?
Objection. Relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
4014 North 19th Street in the city of Milwaukee.
So 19th Street, you said?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. Leading witness.
Overruled. The answer may stand.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 172. That's going to appear on the screen in front of you. Before we do that, these identifiers that you located for Darrell Brooks, did you take a picture of them?
Yes, ma'am.
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name.
Who cares?
100 times.
Don, shut up. For the
Overruled.
100th time, shut up.
And let me know when you see something in your.
I see it.
Okay. Do you recognize these items as
For the
those items you
1000th
just described as
time,
having been removed from the
Please
defendant's
gag
person?
him.
Yes, I do.
Please
I
use
ask the
duct
court
tape.
to admit this exhibit into evidence and to publish it for the jury.
Objection. Relevancy.
Objection is overruled. Exhibit 172 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
If you can specifically zoom in on the Wisconsin.
Uh-oh. Don't zoom in on the debit card.
The address on that Wisconsin identification card, is that the same?
Oh,
address that
wow,
you
look. It says
recited for Dawn Woods?
58140.
Overruled.
58140.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Boom. Do I look 5'8"?
And what was the date that that card was issued?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Once again,
June 14th,
I've got to be
2021.
petty to him.
And the picture on the identification card, would that be consistent or inconsistent with what the defendant looked like on November 21st of last year?
Objection, leading.
And that
Overruled.
specifically
Nancy.
says not a driver's license.
Almost
It's
exactly.
an ID card. So he was an unlicensed driver at the time.
Now, as you were at the substation, what did you do that can be removed?
Exactly. And the witness after said 5'8", 150. So
For the most part, what we were doing
when
down
his
there is
driver's
obtaining
license
basic
says
booking
5'8",
information. So
140,
I confirmed
it's
Mr. Brooks'
spot
first
on.
name, middle name, last name, date of birth. I obtained an emergency contact for him, phone numbers, whether he was working or not, going to school. Obtained information about his tattoos, piercings, things of that nature. Personal identification information.
Okay.
Are there any
And
piercings
who
we
did
don't
he say
know
his
about?
emergency contact was?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
Mr. Brooks indicated his emergency contact person was Dawn Woods.
And what relationship was Dawn Woods to
Hey,
him?
her
Objection,
name's on the
relevancy.
Overruled. You may answer.
red Ford Escape.
It is Mr. Brooks' mother.
So he's driving.
And
Amy's
did you
car.
subsequently obtain a phone number for Dawn Woods?
I did.
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
What is that phone number, if you recall?
Objection, relevancy.
Okay, do not call this
414
number. Don't
610
la 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 la.
2153.
Don't call that number. Not that I need to
Now,
tell
when
you.
you asked the defendant for his name, what did he tell you his name was?
Objection, relevancy.
Overruled.
I believe he indicated it was Darrell, Darrell, which in speaking with him, and I can confirm seeing him today,
Tomato,
Darrell
tomato.
Brooks or Darrell Brooks are one and the same. They are the same person.
I'd
Did
like
you
to
become
get
aware
tomato
of
now.
any video evidence that was collected in the downtown area during the parade, capturing a picture of the person who drove the red SUV
If-
through the parade?
I mean,
Objection,
at least
leading.
say it was
Overruled.
delete
The
laws.
witness may
Say chili.
Yes,
sent
ma'am, I did.
you. But once again, I'm not a
And
frauditor, so when I say don't call that
You
number,
said you saw that?
I actually mean
Yes,
it.
I did.
I'm going to ask that Exhibit 120, which has been previously admitted into evidence, be published for the jury.
Go ahead.
Is that the photographic evidence that you had just testified to?
Objection.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And do you recall approximately, was this the car being driven
What about
While the
TTU?
in the midst of the parade, after the parade, or before the parade, if you know?
Objection.
Because you can't say Kate
Hearsay.
always wins if you don't
Overruled.
follow with TTU.
So the
Or
photo we're looking
TTU,
at right here is
baby.
right in the middle of the parade. So right now, the vehicle is within the parade route while the parade is ongoing.
And were you able to positively identify the driver of that vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, I
Objection,
was.
hearsay.
It's
Overruled.
not
Who's the driver of
hearsay.
that vehicle?
It's so far from
The driver of the
hearsay.
vehicle is Darrell Brooks.
Oh, he snuck that one in. He didn't object to that,
Approximately
Darrell
how
Brooks.
long?
You done
were-
with this exhibit? I'm
I
sorry.
am, yes.
Thank you.
How long were you at the substation?
Probably about 2 to 2.5 hours.
I really hope she's over this.
Why
by
were you there
tomorrow.
versus
It would
anywhere
suck
else?
to be in trial sick.
So at this particular time, the department was in a transition. Our original building was under construction.
Is that why they went to
The building
the
we were primarily
the-
working out of did not have a booking room,
whatchamacallit?
did not have a place to take prisoners, so we had to go down to the substation instead of our own actual police department.
Other than collecting the information that you had previously told us about, including emergency contact information, name, things like that, what else were you doing at the substation?
Objection, leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Mainly at that time, just waiting for
Muskego.
further information as to what was going to be done next. like I say, the scene was very, very chaotic. I know there were so many victims out there. They didn't even have enough ambulances to transport them all.
So they did it in squad cars.
So officers, it took, I feel like probably hours to really get it under control. So I was just waiting on more information.
And Muskego
from,
is
Detective
in
Casey, who had then
Waukesha County.
assigned his lead to determine what steps would be appropriate next. It's just being there with Mr. Brooks and making sure he was safe and remained in custody. I didn't have a real good idea due to the chaos of what was going on away from where I was.
Now, you had testified about some of the property that was recovered from the defendant, and you stated that one of the items was a card in the name of Erica Patterson. Do you recall that?
Objection. He did not say who was in the name of.
Sustained.
That's true.
He's,
He did not.
rephrased.
Actually, if we can pull up Exhibit 172 again.
Objection, hearsay.
There's no question yet, but
And if you can zoom in on the Georgia EBT card.
Because he did
Whose
mention
name is on that card?
an EBT card.
Erica
Objection,
Patterson.
Leedy.
overruled.
And that
You can answer that
is
again.
Erica
the
Patterson.
ex-girlfriend that
Did
he
you, at the
assaulted
time that you were at the
beginning of
substation, have
this,
any information regarding an Erica Patterson
Who
and
he
her relationship
had
to Darrell
statutory
Brooks?
Objection.
fun
that
with when
I
she
don't
was
consent to being called
15.
their name.
Overruled. You may answer, sir.
Objection is hearsay.
Overruled.
He's on
Not
his
at that time,
desperation
no.
objections again.
You later learn of a relationship between the defendant and Erica Patterson?
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled.
Yes, I did.
And what was that relationship?
Objection, Leedy.
Overruled.
He's desperate.
Ms.
to keep
Patterson
this
was
out.
a significant other or girlfriend to Mr. Brooks and mother of one of his children.
Objection. not
One
girlfriend.
of his children.
Overruled.
That's
The jury will disregard that last
frightening.
statement as Mr. Brooks is not testifying at the moment.
Well, keep it true.
Now, when you made contact with
I don't know
Darrell
what's
Brooks
going to be
or while you were
worse,
making
his
contact with
opening
Darrell
or his
Brooks at the
closing.
substation, did he complain of any injuries?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. I
Overruled.
think
You
the
may answer.
prosecution is trying to be funny at this point.
That's
Yes, ma'am, he did. He
Hold on.
can,
I didn't hear the last thing, but I believe it was
Seriously?
commentary. So just state your objection and I'll rule on it. It's been overruled.
just
You may
stop.
answer.
The prosecution
yes, ma'am, he did. He
does not
complained
care that you
of two injuries,
object.
one to his knee, but primarily and mostly of an injury to what was his right shoulder.
Did he say how that occurred?
Objection.
Every
hearsay.
sovereign citizen has an injured shoulder.
Yes, he did.
Upon
Mr. Brooks
arrest.
told us that his shoulder was injured when he was arrested, indicating the arresting officers slammed him to the ground.
Oh,
Did you have the opportunity at
not
any
on
point
video.
in this investigation to review body camera footage from
But
Officer
once
Rebecca
again,
Carpenter?
sovereign citizens
Yes,
always have a
And that was
shoulder
at
injury
the
when the
residence
handcuffs
where the
come
defendant
out
was taken into custody?
because they're torture
Yes, ma'am, it
cuffs.
was.
Did you see any unlawful use of force on the defendant during that
Wow,
time?
that's
Objection.
that's a
Hearsay.
legal question.
Overruled.
Calls for a legal
Witness may answer.
conclusion.
No, ma'am. In fact, there was no force used at all. Mr. Brooks was given verbal directions by officers to get down onto the ground, and he did
And
so
he got down.
entirely on his own power.
Oops.
Based upon his complaints, however, was the decision made to transport him for medical clearance?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you transport the defendant?
Waukesha Memorial Hospital.
Do you know
Gotta get his
approximately what time you
boo-boos
arrived there?
checked out.
I believe, I don't remember the exact time. It was sometime, I believe it was between about 8 and 9 p.m.
And it took 4
Upon
hours
entering,
because
did
all
was
the
with
medical
you
professionals were busy
and
treating his
Mr.
victims.
Brooks?
Objection. I don't consent to being called that name. Is leading the witness.
Overruled as to both. You may answer.
Detective Ben Stern.
Was he partnering with you in this part of the investigation?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
And when you entered the hospital, what observations, if any, did you make?
Entering the hospital, we escorted Mr. Brooks
to a
Objection.
room so that he could receive medical clearance. I know there were some individuals from the parade that were injured in nearby rooms. I didn't really see many of them, but I knew they were close by.
So gotta keep a
So we escorted
close
Mr. Brooks
watch.
into a room, trying to keep away from the victims so as to not
Traumatize
make
them.
the incident any more tension-filled than it already was.
How busy was it at the hospital when you brought Mr. Brooks in?
Objection leading.
Overruled. The witness may answer.
Extremely. There were victims due to the mass amount of casualties, many of which, survived but still needed extensive medical attention. It was very busy. Many of the victims were taken to alternate hospitals because Waukesha Memorial could not handle the amount of patients that were coming in.
I like that. Compound objection. Except you can object on multiple grounds.
Now, approximately how long did you
But
spend
it still would be hilarious.
with Mr. Brooks at Waukesha Memorial Hospital?
Objection.
And once again,
Overruled.
I mean, it's not
Probably about
trolling
4
him,
hours.
but
Is that addition to the
I
time that
wouldn't
you would
play
have
his
spent with
games
him
either.
at the substation?
Yes,
He's
ma'am.
Leading.
Mr. Brooks. He's Darrell Brooks.
What was his demeanor?
I would use his name at every opportunity. I would call
Extremely calm.
his
I could-
identity
I would describe it,
to
I guess, to
attention
put it in context for the court.
every opportunity.
Very similar to mine right now. The conversations I had with
And if
him,
you remember back to the
as far as getting his
first
identification
witness,
info and such, he talked to me as
Miss
calmly as I'm speaking
Runkle,
now.
the ex-girlfriend's
Based on his body language, his
friend,
tone of
roommate,
voice, his attitude,
she played his games, except he
he would
was
never known
forcing her instead of
he
identifying
had done
you.
something.
She
was in custody for having
he
done
made
something
her
so
refer
serious.
to him as Brooks every
Did he
time.
ask you why he was in custody at the substation?
Yes.
And what did you tell him?
At that point, I simply told Mr. Brooks it was a loitering investigation and possible disorderly conduct.
Now, you just testified that he was a suspect in the parade mass
You'll notice-
casualty incident.
And
Why
I've
didn't you tell
pointed
him
this
that?
out multiple times. He hasn't provided an
At that
alternate
time, I didn't
address.
want to make Mr. Brooks, one, overly
He
anxious.
hasn't told the court what to call him.
Two, there was a lot of information. Initially, I still didn't know. It was initially, as part of the chaos, I believe at one
So
point
I
we were actually
suggested
looking for
going
as many
the
as
Prince
four
route
people.
and
So I didn't know
calling
how
him
deeply
the
he
mass
was or was not
murderer,
involved. It was
formerly
believed
known
that,
as Darrell Brooks.
and known that he was somehow involved and knew something. So before I even addressed those issues, one, I wanted to make sure I knew all the facts and had as much information as I could, more than anything for the integrity of the case.
When you talk about the integrity of a case and your discussions with him, did the defendant appear to know what was going on around him? When I say that, I guess, was he aware of where he was, who you were, things like that?
Objection speculative.
As to the way it was rephrased in the second half of that, I will allow it. You may
It's
answer.
asking for his observation.
Yes, he did. He seemed, he was alert. When asked questions, like, for example, his phone number, his emergency contact, the answers were consistent with the question asked. He did not have slurred speech. He did not show any signs of being under the influence or in mental crisis.
Did your opinion change at any
But
time while
three
you were with him
witnesses
on
ago
November
said he might have
21st?
smelled a little bit of weed.
Vague.
Overruled. You may answer.
Vague's a new
No, it did
one
not.
from him.
Now,
I mean, he's asked
during
plenty
the
of
4
vague
hours that you were at the
questions,
hospital, were you?
But I think that's the first time he's objected as
Did he
vague.
continue to complain about shoulder pain?
Yes, he did.
Were his actions always consistent with his expression of the pain in the shoulder?
Objection speculative.
Overruled. You may answer.
No, they were not.
Can you describe for the jury what you mean by that?
Objection speculative. How can he know how somebody's body is feeling?
He's not testifying how your body was feeling. He's
Overruled. You may
testifying
answer,
about
given
how you were
as long as he
moving,
answers with his
how you were
understanding.
acting.
Or what he saw.
Observations is what
There's a
you're saying.
difference.
Thank you. I think that's what you said. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So Mr. Brooks, when he would speak to me throughout the evening, he would move his arms about.
He's
He'd
probably
put them out to
waving
his
his
side,
arms
he'd move
around
them
like
back
I
and
do.
forth. He'd raise them up and down.
Ow, my
He
shoulder.
was talking about being in severe pain, but
I would describe the way he'd move his arms and such as basic body mannerisms and basic interpersonal interactions. His hands, his arms, everything moved completely normally.
He wasn't
when we
wincing.
would speak. There was no favoring of that shoulder or anything to indicate, other than what he was
He
saying,
didn't say, "Ow,
through
my
physical
shoulder."
action, that there was any type of injury there that I observed.
Now, at some point, I strike that. During this time that you were with him and he was getting medically cleared, first of all, did he get medically cleared?
Yes, he did.
Objection, speculative.
He didn't need to be,
Hold on,
Oh, sorry.
overrule, his answer may stand.
do you need any treatment while at the hospital?
No, he was checked out. The doctor came in and looked at his shoulder. I do not believe any medications were given. There may have
No
been,
sodium
I
pentothal.
believe they
or
took an
anything.
x-ray to check it, but he was ultimately cleared and turned over to police
No
custody.
polonium.
And during the time that you were
umbrella
with him
tip.
while he was getting medically cleared, what type of conversation were you having? Was it a general conversation or were you talking to him about the loitering?
Objection, relevancy.
Overrule, you may answer.
The conversation was general.
Had
Mr.
he been
Brooks asked
Mirandized?
several times if I would give him more information as to why he was in custody, and I would continue to tell him it was for the loitering violation. But the conversations were mostly, we talked about sports. The Green Bay Packers had played that day. We talked about the game.
Did they win?
I remember him telling me that
Had Aaron Rodgers
baseball
done
was his
anything
favorite
stupid?
sport, and things of that nature. He was upset that the Packers had lost the game.
Aw,
So it
I
was
went to
basically
Aaron
it was
Rodgers'
general
very
conversation, not related
college start,
to why he was specifically
which
in
was
custody.
coincidentally
At some
Alex
point,
Smith's
did you
very first
decide
college
that you were
start.
going to try to talk
My
to
Utes
the
won.
defendant about at least the loitering incident?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Objection, relevancy.
Overrule, the witness
Just
may
a
answer.
little bit.
Do you know approximately
Just
what
a little bit of
time
band
that
practice.
took place?
11:04 p.m.
And how did you approach this interview? You've now been with Mr. Brooks for maybe 5 hours. Would that be fair?
Yes.
How did you decide to approach this interview with him?
Objection, leading.
Overrule, the witness may answer.
I just explained to Mr. Brooks that I simply wanted to speak with him about why he was in the neighborhood where he was discovered that night, what was going on, what led to him being there, and that I was just looking to have answers to that if he was willing to provide them.
And was Mr. Brooks in a
She's
room that
sick.
had the ability to record the conversation that you had with him?
Objection, I don't consent to being called on the line.
Who cares?
Overrule, you may answer.
It's time to
No,
gag him.
not in the manner we would if we were at our typical police departments. Our police department would have a camera mounted in the corner that would record audio and video. They did have a security camera, but it had no audio capability.
So what did you do?
Tape
I
recorder.
utilized my department issued
And by
phone
tape,
and
I mean-
recorded the audio of the interview that way.
So you
I
had
doubt he'd be
the
able to
audio
find
on your phone
tape
and the
to
visual,
record
or
on.
there was a visual recording. Is that true?
Yeah, so the audio was on my phone and then the visual recording was through the hospital security system.
Question. So they didn't marry up with one another, correct? I mean,
No.
in terms of, I should strike that. You couldn't play the audio with the visual. They're two different recordings.
Yes.
I mean, you could sync them into one
Who else was
Fairly
with you
decent representation.
during this interview?
At that time, Detective Ben Stern from my department was with me, as well as 2 federal agents from the FBI, Agent Mary
So it's an
Davidson,
FBI
and
crime,
Agent Jeremy, I believe it's
except it's in
Pilichowski.
state court. So,
Why were they there?
but I've got to make
So the FBI
Gotta
came
make fun of
involved in the
Billy
investigation early on because we were not certain at that point whether or not this was a terrorist incident.
Hey, don't use that T word.
So how
Once
did it
I
work?
get
Were they in
monetized,
the
I
room
don't
and
want
then
you
Mr. Brooks was brought into
demonetizing
the
me.
room, or how did that work?
Objection, I don't consent to being called that name and is leading the witness.
No and no.
Overrule this to the name, sustained as to the form of the question.
I wasn't paying attention
How
to
did
the
you
question.
all get into the same room?
So I was in
This
the room waiting for
prosecutor
Mr. Brooks.
struggles
Mr. Brooks was
with
brought from another
leading
room
a
by
little
Detective
bit more than
Stern.
the other two.
At this point, the audio recording on my phone was already running.
She's
I
good, but the
believe
other
two
two are
FBI
absolute
agents were
stars.
with me in the room, and then, like I say, Mr. Brooks was escorted in by Detective Stern.
Did you introduce yourselves? Well, you had been with Mr. Brooks previously, correct?
Objection.
Grounds?
Yes, I had.
Overruled, he may answer.
Yes, I had.
Had he been introduced to Detective Stern already?
Yes, he had.
And how about the two FBI agents?
It was at that point that they introduced themselves to Mr. Brooks.
What was his reaction to that when they introduced themselves?
Objection, relevancy.
The FBI for
Overruled.
loitering.
He may answer.
I'm very surprised. He said the word FBI, in the form of a question. I could tell his tone was very surprised. It wasn't as
I wouldn't
calm
expect the
as he
FBI
had
for
been.
a loitering
He
charge.
seemed concerned,
Unless you're
uneasy.
loitering on federal property.
Within about a minute after stating that,
Like,
he questioned the agents
if-
further
if
as to
you're
whether they were
loitering
really
at
FBI
Fort
agents.
Knox.
And he was surprised to see them there, and he had never actually seen an FBI agent before. So he was definitely surprised, and
I
could
have.
tell he was uncomfortable.
Of course, I did my internship at the U.S. Attorney's
Did you
Office.
record the entire conversation you
The
had?
FBI and
with the defendant?
IRS agents were all over the white collar
Yes,
division.
at
where
that
I
point,
worked.
all that is on recording. At that point, yes.
And have you had the opportunity to review that recording prior to today's date?
I have.
I would like to admit Exhibit 81 for the
Objection.
court. It is the audio interview of the defendant that took place on November 21st, 2021. It's previously been addressed by this court.
Objection.
It was
Remind me
domestic
how long it is
something,
again.
certainly.
Your Honor, the entire video is 25 minutes approximately. I'm
At least
asking
at
to
the
play it
start.
from 4 minutes and 25 seconds to 14 minutes and 25 seconds approximately. Well, it would be 10 minutes.
I presume you'll have questions regarding that once you play it.
Correct.
All right, given that it's just before 5 o'clock, I'm going to stop for the day. We can pick up with this tomorrow. You can put down for the moment, and I will have our instruction for the jurors. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do not begin your deliberations and discussion of this case until all the evidence
End
is
of day.
presented and I have instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations, in the jury room. This order is not limited to face-to-face conversations. It also extends to all forms of electronic communications. Do not use any electronic devices such as a mobile phone or computer, text or instant messaging or social networking sites to send or receive any information about this case or your experience as a juror. If you come in contact with the parties, lawyers, interpreters, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, the parties, lawyers, interpreters, and witnesses will not contact or speak with the jurors. Do not listen to any conversation about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think
Previous
might be helpful to you
witness,
in understanding the issues
the one that
presented.
transported
Do not
him from the
investigate this
hospital
case
to the
on your own or visit the scene either in person
to the
or by
police
any
station,
electronic means.
he'd be
Do not
doing it
read
at
any
2x
newspaper
speed
reports or listen to
in
any
real
news
time.
reports on radio,
He was
television,
fast.
over the internet, or any other electronic application or tool about this trial. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, electronic applications, social media, the internet, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness in this case. Any information you obtain outside the courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you are serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device, including personal wearable electronics, applications, or tools with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or off the computer.
At least
Do
he's
not
not
permit anyone to
performatively
communicate with
reading
you
his
about this
Bible
matter,
today
either in person,
during this
electronically, or by
admonition
any
like
other
he did
means.
on
If
Friday.
anyone does so despite your telling them not to, you should report that
Maybe
to
he
me.
finished
I
that
appreciate that it is
chapter
tempting when you
at
go home in the
lunchtime.
evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, based on the evidence presented in the courtroom. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decision in this case. After the trial is completed, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner.
I'm sure
These
she
rules
finds
are
it as
intended to
frustrating
assure
as
that
you do,
jurors remain
Steve.
impartial throughout the
But
trial.
once again,
If any
it's
juror has reason
required.
to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you
There
should
should
report that to
be
me. If jurors do not
sort
comply
of
with these
an
rules, it could
abbreviated
result
one,
in a new trial
like
involving additional
read the
time and
full
significant expense to
one
the
at
parties
the start of
and
the case and then the
taxpayers.
start of every
You are to
week,
decide the case
or
solely
at the
on
end of
the
the week,
evidence
but
offered and received
have
at
an
trial.
abbreviated,
With that, you are
abridged
excused
version.
for the evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. All rise for the
He's
jurors, please.
he's ready to argue, or maybe not. Maybe he thinks that's irrelevant now, that paper. I still think he's going to argue something before we end. He's got that look on half his face, shrugging his injured shoulder.
I'm printing out a draft of preliminary, you can be seated, jury instruction 60, which concerns use of an interpreter for a witness. I have a question about that second paragraph, which relates to
thanks
whether
for
the
joining
witness
today,
knows
John.
some English or not. And so we'll review that tomorrow morning.
I'm
first
still
thing.
curious if he has
They'll be provided
fireworks.
to the parties, so you have that to look at.
Because just because the jury's
evening.
gone for the day doesn't mean he's
With
done.
that, I'll see everyone tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you.
Oh, it sounded like he was starting. They cut the audio, but he was starting on something. But the judge is done with his nonsense. So I think she just cut the record and is like, nope. It's 5 o'clock on the dot. Let's go home. So with that, I'm tired. It was it was a busy weekend, not a long weekend. My nephew's birthday party was successful. It's always successful when you have a bouncy house and the kids leave with the same number of broken bones as they started with. Off to my uncle's retirement party. So it's gonna be a long day. So I will see you guys bright and early tomorrow morning. I'll try to be on time, but maybe not completely on time so we can fast forward on the break again. Either way, thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow. Have a good night.